you have to be the singular, infinite thing in a finite universe. Everything else dies. You gotta live forever. If you want to live for all of eternity, you've been alive for 20 years, and you think that it's not worth it without eternity. Never ending.
Oh. If I've been alive for 20 years, and yet I want to live for eternity, is that it? Because... Sorry,
so this is Tom Jump's Discord server. It's his probably 3 or 4 atheists that are having theists call in to give the good reasons they have to believe a God exists. We're right in the middle of a call.
Of vast time.
You know, setting up so I can't fill you in on where we're at, but
let alone eternity. Okay.
Should figure it out pretty quick though.
1.5 billion years. And there were entire worlds completely alien to us if we were to develop a time machine and go back to those years. And it would be so foreign that it would be not comparable to anything that we've observed in our modern world. And different animals and creatures, and even some sentient beings such as, Neanderthals and Denisovans and Cro-Magnons, they all existed way back when. We've never had any experience with any of them. Right? That's how great time is. I mean, we're talking eons and eons and eons and eons of time. You've been alive for 20 years. You want to be alive for all eternity.
Oh my God.
It's nice thought, but all I can really say about why...
Hardcore domination. Capture the objective.
This dude got a whole flamethrower.
Losing objective Charlie. Hostile recon spotted.
Wow.
They're overpowering us. Take those positions.
On top of the tree over here.
Securing Baker. Pull yourselves up. We're lagging.
And not different pizzas, but one. How long do you think?
Closing with Charlie. Incoming grenade.
Damn, dog, man.
They got recon in the sky. Incoming grenade.
Get that down. Yeah. Out them down.
Taking Baker. Hostile flying fortress incoming.
Oh shit.
They're taking Baker.
I'm out.
The enemy has total domination. Push back.
This dude has a fortress.
yeah, dude, this is insane.
Hostile recon mission.
24 fortress. Oh.
I can't do shit every time.
I know, I get in and I die, like right there. That's bullshit.
I can't because they just camp in every fucking spot, bro.
Yeah.
Closing with Abel. See them taking the bait.
Yeah, got one. What the fuck? I'm going to be.
Closing with Baker.
I'm already at B. I'm taking it too.
Ah, right behind us. That's that same fucker, dude.
Flamethrowers, bitch ass.
Baker locked down. Enemy has bombers on the way.
Oh.
Enemy glide bomb incoming.
Yeah, let's get back to Icarus.
This dude is not fucking.
Grenade.
God damn.
Recon plane cleared for mission.
God, they spawn trapping us now.
Yeah, they are.
We can't do shit.
I'm the right atheist and everyone else is the wrong atheist.
The round is ended. Not much hope for this one.
Wow.
I'm a DS, all these guys.
Charlie. They got recon in the sky. We're dug in at Charlie.
They've been roasted.
Yeah, we got wasted. Wasted.
Look at all the sweaty front of me. What the fuck? Talk about fucking 91. What the fuck? What the fuck?
Hey, Rent to live in that corner.
We're just feeding them. We're just feeding them tacos. That's it.
Oh man, the flavor had dropped. The flavor had dropped.
Yeah, getting it from above. Getting flamethrower.
Over here when I got the score streak.
Yeah.
Split
You know, haters gonna hate when you're good at something. They don't ever hate losers like we do.
I hate losers.
What the fuck is that?
Yo, mama, bitch, gagging on these black balls like cherries.
Oh wow.
Sounds like a mouthful. Got slaughtered. That was bad. God,
They don't want me to start playing with mine. They better put their shit away.
A book of myths, not a true historical book.
The God of the Bible is
As much as like similar to Zeus. You really not into being
what does that mean? Classic chatter?
pulling you.
I don't want anybody to rule
talk about as a cosmic and that's about
It all comes down to fear or death.
complete full sovereign control over everything. It's basically a celestial North Korea. But Christopher Hitchens said, at least you can fucking die and leave North Korea.
That's heaven. Celestial North Korea.
Okay, that's a fun description of God. I would have thought
That's what it sounds like, though. The
The
Supreme Leader,
Securing Able.
Yahweh.
Domination. Move out and secure the objective. This one won't be easy.
Oh, and this is
Icarus, you just said that the God of the Bible is
Where's that?
They're taking Baker.
Oh, I got.
I see them taking the bait. Baker is
Jump down or
overrun.
what? I didn't even see him.
Hostile
How's that
recon
guy?
spotted.
Yes.
maybe I didn't have a son.
Oh!
Taking Baker.
At least it didn't show my death.
Losing objective Able.
So slow.
That's just how
Losing
my mind
objective
works.
Able.
Unfortunately.
Enemy controls it all. Take that ground.
What was making my mind?
We're gonna squat. Nope, we're gonna die.
Just the concept of, there's something up there that's
Capturing
and
Baker.
And not here. Where
Where the fuck?
When I die, there will be nothing.
1534.
Absolute and utter nothing.
Hostile recon mission aloft. Here, little fishy. Charlie, locked down.
Got something.
I'll go right ahead if that works for you.
Securing Baker.
A lot of work that you still need to do.
Able is lost. Recon plate circling the battlefield.
You gonna be on the roof?
On my life.
It's over here somewhere.
Enemy glide bomb. Hostile recon in the air. Spies in the
That's
sky.
what I wanted to do, but you stayed alive.
Intel, pressure arrive.
Ah!
Enemy recon plane total.
We're just not. Shot in the ass. Somebody more reasonable on.
I see them taking the bait. I knew I had that one.
Oh, ugly shot, but I got it.
You're breaking up.
Hey Chris, thank you for joining. My name is Jeff. We appreciate you coming up in your time.
Oh, I got lucky on that one.
I've got intel.
Shit's so slow, I need to fix that.
Ready with the
Oh,
recon
what
plane.
happened? Stop flying.
Eyes up for our recon plane. Not in able. Recon air. I see them taking the bait. Pin down.
Ooh.
Glide bomb set to drop. Hostile recon spotted.
Oh.
They're taking fire. That is bones. Double kill.
Not a man. They're probably a little mad. No, don't steal my kill.
I see them taking the bait. We're falling behind. Push back.
What am I? Oh, what? Oh, merciless. What's going on? Gravity can't hit B.
I'll reshare to YouTube.
Swear I saw head.
I see them taking the bait. Double kill.
I get both of them?
Watch the stun.
Oh, I'm on fire. I'm on fire.
Head spinning.
Alright, I'm going for B. Even if I get killed like 20 times, you gotta get this shit.
I see them hunting with Charlie.
You know I got you. Human sapiens? What the fuck's a human sapien? Why not say Frogopolian?
Wait, which characteristic are you talking about?
Just feeling.
Sapiens?
Human sapiens.
So, which part of sapiens? Sapiens
Please
is just
put
like
a space between them. Oh shit! Pistol just got me. Oh, that's not good.
Sentience.
Sapient, sentient.
I feel that in my bones.
Bang, bang, bang. Oh, I knew you'd be there. I knew you would. Something you do. And hey, scratch my nose. Fucker smell like shit. Oh. This is a headshot. Come need another one, I'm telling you. It's like...
was this ability to like counter
Hold it. Yeah, long shot. I'm getting all these long shots.
maybe that was some sort of like some sort of
Hey, thanks, bud.
existing, and there is a creature that can only be interacted with metaphysics.
Gotta be behind this.
Glide bomber assist coming in. Using a sticky bomb.
Come on. I know nobody's in here.
They got care package en route. Enemy recon on flyby.
Oops.
Very powerful level of sentience, which has this ability to accomplish certain
Good,
ideas.
because I need the long shots. Come on, run out. There you go. Oh, there you go.
We flanked their recon plane.
Don't correspond to reality.
Enemy's got a glide bomb incoming. You got your armor. The round is almost done. So are we.
Hell on you.
Yes, they have like the path is similar, but why are
New intel, ready for report.
Oh.
Because anything there is one slight advantage.
Intel's here. I see him. Throwing a sticky bomb. What the hell happened out there?
That anything that got there first would then immediately take over and get super advantage. Because we're selecting for this feature, it grows at a higher rate. Intentionally selects for this feature. If we got the feature first, it's over first, it's sort of that feature cause some exponential growth and give us a head start on it.
Alright, so you do possible evolution, and then the first spirituality is just a side effect.
Yes.
Alright,
We
yeah,
want to
no,
like the claim that we're super exceptional is not as strong as it seems, right? So the areas that are primarily responsible for the things that we're supposed to be the best at, mostly language and the ability to manipulate abstraction, are Linux area and Windows area. There's analogous areas in other primates that are closer to us in evolution, which shows it's a gradual thing. Chimpanzees also have a more pronounced Linux area than those areas, right? And so the like sort of human exceptionalists are like, oh, they're just start hating animals and anything like that. Time just falls apart if you look at fairly small, fairly sophisticated,
What I miss? What I miss?
grasping abstraction of how machines work and what the consequences and like cause and effect relationships of different machines are, whether they do like 12-step puzzles that are randomized every time in the first try because they understood the properties of the machines involved. Right? So there really are isolated examples of each of the capacities that we see in humans other than like the highest level of language, which is grammar basically. In one animal and another, the reason that we think that makes sense is because there is a relative case that they're moving. So they're usually selective functions that are explaining the human capacity. Otherwise, it's just not necessary. It's like a waste of energy to have a brain that's much more sophisticated than you need to survive. Right? If fruit literally grew from every place in the world and was infinitely supplied and no animal needed to struggle to compete
Hardcore domination. Defend the objective. Hope you're ready for a real fight. Securing Charlie.
The human department is this environment that early human
was Vega is overrun.
Oh, snap. Hurry, put that down. Oh, shit, behind me, huh?
Yeah, little fishy.
And they stay confined to
They're overpowered. Take those positions. Recon planes ready.
Now
They
they're
got
in
nowhere
big
to
trouble.
go. Ready for target. Taking Charlie. Watch it.
Grenade.
that's a good explanation for how
I thought I got him. I thought I got him.
other CCs didn't have to. Dolphins have so much fish to eat, there's no reason to pick the things even though they're very smart.
Shoot your teammate.
Civilization. Hard to
I knew there was a guy there.
Like, it was actually a very blood flame to throw
Closing with
but
Baker.
somebody wasn't very good at
Losing objective able. Incoming grenade.
Show your ugly face. I can't see, bro.
Capturing Charlie.
Alright, we shall get B. We shall. Covered.
Hostile recon mission aloft. Even taking the base.
Where the fuck are they?
With the same, let's say, speed,
Laying down. Oh.
hustle settled, because I can't imagine that, like, leaving, let's say, the Mediterranean was us,
little fishy.
to Scandinavia, you know?
Molotov.
Like, why would the Scandinavian people be more advanced?
Knew I had that one. Taking Baker.
Different selection practices are like Jews, specifically Ashkenazi Jews. The Jewish culture specifically selected for why they have such an advantage on intellectual success. Why they have such
Hostile recon in the air.
Yo, no! Oh, bullshit.
Able is lost. Recon up. We have eyes in the sky.
Thank you, Squirrel. Appreciate you coming up.
Watch the thermite. Incoming stun grenade. Feel that in my bones.
Take care.
See them taking the bait. Closing.
Didn't see that cat. Getting our ass whooped again.
Oh, someone in the audience has been touching you.
Oh.
So, great.
That fire failed me.
Closing with Charlie. Enemy recon. Spy in the
Never get
skies.
put on the good teams.
See them taking the bait.
Kill people.
How are you killing?
Zero is you're on your
Securing
phone.
able.
They hear our stream. They hear our stream through his mic.
Oh, man.
Somebody said
Yeah, we don't want it.
Come on, man.
Zero win. If you don't unmute, then we'll probably talk to somebody else.
Saw him. Did I get him?
I just messaged him.
Yeah, I'm stupid, just so you all know. I'm stupid. Not my fault.
Securing Charlie. Enemy recon on flyby.
Okay, Morrow is muted. I don't know if the cat is hit your mute button.
Don't point at me. Don't get it.
I'm trying.
See them taking the bait.
What have you got?
Taking Baker.
Are you...
Enemy recon. Spy in the
Yes,
Man, how much luck is that? Shit.
Okay, so my argument is about the Quran
Securing
mentioning
Come
the Neutrino Star.
The what?
The Neutrino Star was discovered in movies where Quran mentioned it.
Yeah, little fishy.
Well, it's chapter 86.
Closing with Baker.
What pronunciation with the Quran?
Wow, I didn't.
Especially the part where it's
Yeah, little fishy. Hostile
verse
recon
from
in the air.
1 to
Fly to the sky.
chapter 86.
Securing Baker.
Yes, I read it in Arabic.
Enemy recon
I don't rely on the translation of the okay?
Well, I've got it pulled up now.
We can read the English. I've got English pulled up right here.
Yeah. The star, and what will make you realize the star is the brightness.
Okay, so the translation
Sorry, too, man.
is somewhat
And you didn't even kill the motherfucker.
In the verse, it's anything that specifies the location of the star.
What? The location is not mentioned, no.
So how do you get from a star to a specific star?
Boom. Boom.
Well, because as I'm making the point, the translation is wrong because the translation is wrong.
Ugh, fucking teammates, get out of the way. Why are you running backwards? It's not hard to fucking figure out.
And then you say it mentions this specific star in that location. How do you get from A to B?
Well, because it didn't mention a specific star. You need the location if you were recruiting to a specific star. In this case, it doesn't mention.
Which is what you were doing. You said the Quran mentions this specific star.
Yes,
if the verse doesn't mention a specific star,
Don't just let him
how
take
did
it.
you get that mentioning a specific star in a specific location with a specific name? Why didn't the Quran mention any of that?
Well, I didn't make this claim. I made the claim that a kind of star was discovered, not a specific star.
What an idiot. That sounds so stupid.
There's nothing in the
Yeah.
Really
Yes.
not.
Yes, because
So from my understanding of the Quran, the specific verse that you're talking about, while lexically it's singular, it's not that the word, and I couldn't even hope to pronounce it, but while lexically it's singular, it's not implying any one particular star, but stars in the generic sense. That the fact that this set is essentially saying that because there are stars don't fall out of the sky, they don't disappear, they don't wander off and vanish, that they're constant. That there must be something holding them in place, maintaining their illumination and their consistency. And that from that assumption is that there is a being or something that is holding them there. So essentially what the surah is, what this particular surah is stating is that it looks like this, and there is consistency, and or you could say even order to it. So therefore, there's something maintaining that thing is Allah.
also wrong because stars are not consistent.
Well, they're consistent. I mean, obviously, stellar rotation would be, we're talking about when this thing was written. So, yeah, there is some variation there, and stars do kind of move the stellar progression. But from their perspective, they're looking at like if you look at the North Star, very small. It takes like 6,000 years for them to get a new North Star. So when they're looking at it, they say, oh, the stars do the same pattern every single day. And so therefore the stars don't change, the stars don't move, they're constantly there. What is holding them in place? So it's basically offering Allah as a reason as to why the sky, in their limited perception of time that they have, that this is written, looking at it saying, well, the stars are there, they're consistent, they're illuminated, they don't so what keeps them consistent and that keeping them consistent is Allah. Essentially that's what the story is stating.
no, let me make my point.
I mean, assault rifle.
I'm not talking about the locations, and I'm talking about a specific kind of stars. It's called the neutrino star.
It's funny you can't explain it.
Because in Arabic, the word
Your enemies aren't pushovers this time. Able, locked down. They're taking Baker.
it translates to the knocking one.
What?
Knocking, like knock knock. Who's there?
Yeah.
I'm just going online trying to find anything about
Closing with Baker.
It's really weird. I see
I missed almost that whole clip. I'm ridiculous. Oh, it's the bar.
There's no relation, right? It's just like, oh, scientific miracle, let's go.
No, because the knocking, he named it the knocking one.
Yeah, little fishy.
The knocking one.
Why did he say?
Strong gun.
Why didn't he name it?
Recon plate scanning the area. Baker is lost.
This is from the raw artillery.
Oh, yeah.
86, 115. And it talks about what do you know what the
Oh, you're probably yeah, what up?
Double kill. Light bomber assist coming in.
Jump over it. Oh shit, watch. They're gonna be mad.
Glide bomb armed and ready.
First one, read that translation
told you.
for verse 1.
Ah!
No.
Alright, I'll get beat this time. I'll get it.
Capturing Baker.
The work in Arabic.
Sorry about that.
The work in Arabic.
This is why I asked you to read the verse.
I felt everybody just eye roll there, because I did too.
Then we would at least know what you are reading.
Ah! Run, 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 run!
And the fact that you constantly say, well, it's worse than this.
Oh, he's in my spot.
All be looking at different websites, different translations, coming up with different things, and we still wouldn't get what you are reading. So it would be helpful. If you read the verse not in Arabic, the translation you have for that in English.
Okay. It reads in Arabic, وَالسَّمَاء وَالطَّارِقِ.
You've had too much coffee.
Translated for and raven and the knocking one.
Incoming group, they got a fighting chance.
The word authority means someone who knows.
Oh, how did I not die?
Hostile recon in the air.
Oh.
Spies in the sky.
So what do the stars knock on?
Well, this is what the
Planting
scientists
stun
say.
mine.
That the neutrino stars.
Ah, I saw it too. I'm an idiot.
Every second.
God, you're dumb. You are fucking dumb. I'm trying to get this hole opened up so we're not running out in fucking open. He's like, hey, you're shooting. Let me. Oh, I have to run in front of that.
Listen, bro. Pulsating, or pulsating.
Dude.
Even if it was pulsating, this is such a reach.
Get engineers.
Enemy controls it all. Take that ground.
So how do you get to knocking?
Yeah.
Dude, it's such a reach, right? Like, I'm looking at, it's like 3 lines that are like, the star at night. It's the piercing star.
You got a fighting chance. Securing Able.
No.
There's nothing there, dude.
Listen, what's the
Oh,
solution
it
for
fucking flipped the map on us.
Enemy recon on flyby.
Knocking.
Enemy bombers. Come out.
The name. Yes, the knocking is pulsating.
Hostile recon in the air.
Star is forsaking. Is that what that morons?
Hostile recon destroyed.
Fair to say Muslims have dumb arguments.
Enemy care package in the truck.
I'm just looking at the word pulsating.
Hostile Goliath on the
Pulsating
crawl.
is
Pull yourselves up. We're lagging.
Walk on his head. Run. Oh, he's coming.
Enemy guard dog on the prowl. Taking Baker.
How does knocking
You got B?
No, it's describing
I didn't have the bar, I would have gotten that kill.
Incoming bomb! Clear out!
I have a question. Maybe that's helpful.
Recon flight mission deployed.
Reading the Quran, or did scientists find those stars by observing the night?
But just to clarify, pulsars are in neutron stars.
It does matter. Hold on. It does matter.
No, it doesn't. It literally
Getting somewhere. I'm
Hostile recon spotted. Baker is
Did the scientists use the Quran and then discover the star, or did they observe the night sky and discover the star, and then some Muslims found a word that lines up with it, and then...
I knew I had that one.
Yes, the first argument is right. They didn't read the Quran, then describe the star.
Uh-oh. Prayer in the back.
So what you did was hindsight, thinking, okay, this might look similar, so it's probably the reason.
Oh my goodness! Right in front of me.
Yes, but we find it not similar. We find it fitting the description of the scientists.
Because that's something
Goliath on the crawl.
No, this is another point.
Enemy has bombers on the
We are
way.
talking about this point. So let's
Enemy care package.
this one.
What I'm trying to point out, Maro, is that the scientists didn't discover the stars because the Quran described them. You retrofit the Quran into a
Enemy's got free out there.
Yes,
and it's not even a good
That's true.
fit.
Just horrible at
Why
getting
it's
to
not
the
a good
point.
fit?
There's so much background noise in my phone.
Yeah.
So there's tons of different kinds of stars that all pulsate. It's not just neutron stars. And there's stars that flicker in the night sky. They good generate light in the night sky. So it didn't say anything about neutron stars. It didn't say they were made of one star. It didn't say anything specifically related to neutron stars whatsoever. It just said,
You can hear the Muslim prayer in the
When you're
background.
not speaking because the background noise is
Yes,
awful.
it is awful.
Capturing Baker.
Muhammad looking at the sky and seeing the sunlights flicker and saying, "Oh look, a dimming star."
I knew I had that one.
Long shot. Yay!
We hold Baker.
Another one.
Literally say, "This is a neutron."
Intel,
Got it.
pressure eye.
Come on, one more.
They're taking Baker.
There's nothing in the Quran that predicts neutron stars. The neutron stars are pulsars.
Give me something. Give me something.
I just want to know if
Binary star systems also pulsate.
Yeah, ready with
Oh,
the
you're
recon
trying to be
flight.
sneaky.
Is also
Oh,
not mentioned in
Can't
that
call that
particular
like
verse
that.
that you're reading.
I really want to know how consistent his view is, right? Because he's saying that he accepts the scientific findings there for that. So if you accept the scientific findings that disagree with Quran 54 verse 150, that both say that the moon was never split and that
Round is
Noah's
almost
flood
done.
you accept both scientific findings on those?
Well, I can't find a scientific paper on this topic, you know.
Then you're not looking hard enough.
No,
I've never seen nothing on stars before.
Consensus.
Only Quran is the only one that's where stars came from, was Quran. You didn't know?
if you want to find
Boom, got that little bitch at the end.
someone never split it.
Yeah, it's NASA said the moon never split. That's a
No,
claim
I don't.
that NASA made, who's probably the most advanced organization in regards to space, besides maybe like Elon Musk.
That's good.
SpaceX is not more
No.
Probably not, but I'm just saying.
Yes, there are tons of scientific papers that say that the origin of the moon came the way it was, the shape it was. Absolutely, all of them reject the idea that it's split in half because that would completely change the physics. The way it got the way it was has nothing to do with any kind of splitting. There's no splitting.
Okay, so I need to read this paper not just some.
Of course.
Can we talk about Muhammad splitting the
not
moon in
just
half
some
and flying up
scientists
to
working
heaven on a winged
NASA
horse?
and said that the moon never split. I need to read his paper and read his
Origin of the Moon,
evidence
Harvard
for
University.
such thing. So I need to read his evidence
on neutrino stars because you didn't know what you were talking about. You just accept it because it coheres with the Quran, and then when someone disagrees with the Quran, you reject it and you say, "I haven't seen the evidence." Well, you haven't even seen the evidence for the other one, which is why you don't know it's not the same.
No, because I know the scientists are describing the neutrino star, and it fits the description exactly. So
no, it doesn't.
So
it's not the same, dude. That's what we're saying.
So there's a binary star system. So now it describes two different things. So the Quran is too vague. Is that what you're saying?
No.
The verse could apply to different stars and not to the one that you mentioned.
No, because the Quran mentions a knocking star and
which is the binary star. Which is a binary star system, which also Paul says.
There are thousands and thousands of different kinds of stars that all pulse. They all do. Most of them do. Yes.
There, I gave you a source on the origin of the moon.
Literally, look up at the night sky and see the stars pulsating any day you want, or any evening you want.
Okay, so
just an observation that they could have made back then.
Yeah, now you're fitting it into.
And put those into the Quran. It's not a new discovery.
No,
it's that we've known.
Let's just read
for science.
References
The moment
supernova,
people
right?
started looking up at the sky, they saw that. So how's this special?
Can we just just really quickly, can we I don't know, this doesn't even if Mara was correct and the Quran somehow accurately describes the kind of star, right?
Yeah, how is that
not, that
hardcore domination. Defend the objective.
We know that they were
Show
talking
'em what's what. Baker is overrun.
40,000 years before the Quran was ever written. Right? So these sort of groundbreaking discoveries did happen prior to the necessary technological advances. But it's not like we were convincing any of us, even if the Quran did have a passage that accurately described that this must be God inspired, because there's other instances in the Quran where they get things wrong, scientifically speaking. This isn't very distinct from what 7th century people would have understood in the first place. Yeah, the star is twinkling. You can all see twinkling stars in the sky. But even if it were the case that this was an accurate representation of a neutron star specifically, we don't see how that would get us to God exists.
Yeah, it'd have to entail some information that was not accessible to the country.
Yeah.
Blinking is... They had accessible blinking.
We made a visual observation, so that means God exists.
Yeah, that's what it means to be a neutron star, yeah.
How could he have came up with that?
Is
Enemy running recon. They got eyes in the sky.
Because he described it in the third verse, in the verse piercing star. So piercing means something goes through something. Okay?
Timing of this shit is this thing. Oh, see.
So light piercing,
I hate to this day. Come on, 501, we can get him. 501.
Nothing specific.
Enemy's got a glide bomb coming. Enemy guard.
Matter. Okay, so
bullshit.
Yes, gamma rays come from literally every star. So again, nothing specific. You're trying to retrofit something and make it specific to one single kind of star when that is not the case.
Well, because it talks about knocking and piercing at the same star, you cannot find...
And it probably is talking about light piercing the dark. So what?
No, it's shining. If you are saying shining, is not piercing.
This semantic nonsense is not getting us anywhere. Nobody's convinced.
And
Can we please move on?
Despite the fact that
Please move on,
despite
please.
the fact that it hasn't been brought up, that knocking is determined by sound.
Yes.
That you hear knocking.
Yeah, we can easily get
That's
through
knocking,
this.
and that
Can we not?
stars are visual. That humans can't hear stars. Okay.
Yeah,
Knocking is
but
something that is non.
Excuse me, Maro, were you, did you have a link to share? If you could post it in the heated hangout, there's some people asking, and also a couple of people said they liked your background noise.
And I have a specific question for you, Maro. I have a specific question for you because you keep coming up with things. So, what's the verse in the Quran that mentions camera rays?
It's the third verse. It says the piercing.
Let's hear how ambiguous this is. Let's hear it.
No, it's the.
Let's hear
No,
it.
it says a piercing star. It's
A piercing star. What the fuck are you supposed to make out of that?
No. Let's get to the verse that mentions gamma rays. Specific.
Some will
Yeah.
rise, some will fall.
There isn't any. Oh my god.
Something is piercing.
Yes. If I have a toothpick and I pierce my skin, that's also piercing. You are gamma rays. You said it's mentioned in the Quran, so please provide the verse where it specifically mentions gamma rays. Not something that can be explained by a toothpick and skin, because that's also piercing.
You gonna get shot, bro? I got shot.
All forms of light can go past through your skin.
Squatting.
Like if you hold your hand up, you can see light through your skin. All forms of light.
No.
I'm reading this in English, and I'm thinking supernova. They saw supernova, and then they're like, yeah, like this.
We're in the lead.
I think Peter is correct on this. That it's another case of taking contemporary
Losing
science
objective able.
and then fitting the Quran to it. So someone
Yeah.
go back and be like, oh, well, they obviously meant this.
Spit it right in there. Yeah, the Quran already said that, so they knew about science way before we had all these tools and equipment. And they spoke so ambiguously that it makes no sense, but they did it. And that's the miracle.
Jack Dog's called in, on the way.
No, the equation.
Yeah, so if you have a straw man, but
Listen, bro. The equation
guarantee there's somebody out there that was.
is telling
think
you
that was a good
about
idea.
a kind of star that's knocking
No,
and piercing at the same time. Listen, you
It can literally apply that to billions of stars and billions of different stars. We just pointed that out.
That's a teammate.
There's no star.
Weirdo.
What it appears to be, at least I think for the majority of us, that you are essentially going back. You're taking
Closing with Abel,
and then you are molding it to, or you're molding the Quran instead what we now know.
we hold Abel. Yeah, little fishy.
We've demonstrated the flaw in that reasoning.
I'm willing to bet $1,000 right now that Maro does not believe in God because this particular passage describes the need.
What about the expansion of the universe?
They are going for A.
We're not going on to a different topic. You wasted our time long enough with the star nonsense. If you thought that the expansion of the universe was described in the Quran and that this was stronger evidence, you would have started with that. But you didn't. So we're
Oh, he. At least we got a good kill.
Let's go back to Zero. He says that his audio problems are fixed.
Okay. Main screen turn on.
All right. Zero, you're up again, man.
Can you hear me?
We get signals.
Okay.
You've got for us the cosmological argument, is that right?
Yeah.
I'm just going to start really quickly here.
I'm just getting kills right now. Fuck A, B.
It doesn't have reference to a god, but if you can connect those dots as part of your presentation, then I'll be very interested.
It might be helpful if you
enemy
state
dog free
your
out there.
version of the Quran, because there are different versions, so state yours so we can address yours specifically.
Well, there's different versions of cosmology.
Yeah, let's start by letting him give the argument. Go ahead, give the argument. What is your argument?
Hostile flying fortress incoming. Keep pushing and we might have this.
The universe known as everything must have a cause. The universe not a cause itself. Wait, go back, hold on. Well, the universe is known as everything? Is that what your first thing?
What the? Oh. They're up in the air.
What's the universe of a cause?
Let's go.
Wait, if you're defining the universe as everything, that includes God.
Okay.
Wow, that was fucking fast, dude. It's probably a shotgun from a mile away. Got it.
Yeah, since the universe cannot have caused itself, there must be an external cause. Which is timeless.
My teammate ran out.
A timeless, causeless, eternal being must be God, and this being must be intelligent because a non-intelligent being cannot propel itself; it must be acted on.
Incoming bomb!
Clear out! Eternal and intelligent, it must be.
Cool, you can claim all that without any knowledge.
Guys, whoa, there's way too many people trying to jump on this at once. Unreal. Okay, Zero, let me ask you a question. When you say the universe, why do you believe that requires
Securing Baker.
What's your argument that it's
Oh, I agree that
because
Recon
it's probably the universe to begin to exist in order for the universe to exist. It cannot have caused itself, it doesn't have to exist before.
Well, we're not saying that it caused itself.
Why does it require a cause? Why does the universe require
inductive reasoning.
Why does it require a cause?
It could be unconstant.
It could be unconstant.
Because at some point it must have begun to exist.
Why?
Why must it have done that?
Hostile flying fortress incoming.
So your argument that matter can't be created.
Friendly bombing run inbound.
Disembodied mind created matter.
Can you?
One other flaw. If the universe
They call it care package.
Everything that exists, then what exists that is part of that
exists outside of
Sticky bomb out.
if God exists, then
So
part
dead
of
in my
everything
bones.
that exists.
I was able to define it like God. I defined it
Yeah,
it sounded like your argument with the universe.
Enemy blind bombing.
Everything that exists. Everything minus one thing. It doesn't line up.
They got care package on route.
He's external.
Okay, that's
External to your imagination.
Peter, obviously, what Peter says is just confirms all physical reality.
Yeah,
yes, we understand that, but what I'm trying to do is start at premise one. Premise one is the universe must have a cause. So I'm starting there. That's the first premise. So I want Zero, I want you to substantiate why
Hostile dogs in the zone.
universe must have a cause.
Because the law of conservation of energy or the law of
Enemy death
conservation
machine
of matter states that you cannot create something unless energy cannot be created.
If the universe, if there was never a state of affairs where the universe didn't exist.
So matter changed, and now we have the universe. Singularity.
If there was a state of affairs, hold on, Peter. If there was a state of affairs, if there was never a state of affairs where the universe did not exist, meaning that it has always been here in some form or another, then there's no violation of the babies and child protection.
Hostile flying fortress incoming. We got recon aloft.
Hey, we gotta let
Still going. Fucking.
Okay, so are you implying that the universe
Taking Able.
There's nothing to suggest that it could
over yet?
So you're arguing that it must be.
Recon plane scanning the area.
I am positing an alternative explanation. Right? Can you demonstrate to me why it is impossible for the universe to make quality?
because
Yeah, because essentially, like, if the universe is not at the top of the system, or is your like the offering, then what would be like the cause of effect?
Here's the problem, Zero. Like, cause and effect, the way that we observe that within our local experience of reality, that isn't like some law that imposes itself on the universe. That is a principle that we are able to deduce from the interactions of extant things, right? But the problem that you're immediately going to run into when you try to make the argument that the universe was caused is that causation is a relationship between two things. The universe did not exist, and that God, whatever you define that to be, somehow facilitated its existence without affecting anything. That's not a causal relationship. That's not causality.
If you're watching this is the Tom Jump
principle and process
channel on YouTube playing in the background.
Changing it to a way that's completely unrecognizable, and then demanding that the rules be applied the same, when you're necessarily changing them already. If the universe did not exist at some point, God couldn't have affected anything to create the universe. So whatever process God used to facilitate the existence of the universe would not have been causation. So any inductive argument you use from this point forward relating to causation is going to intrinsically be fallacious, because you're going to have to change the rules when it comes to the universe. Because it's not going to apply the same way that it does to all the things that we observe in the universe.
Okay, I never said that God, like, created something, took something and then created the universe. Why is it impossible that God could have simply, like, since I'm defining the universe as
I'm not saying it's impossible. He wants a good reason to believe it.
God could have
Why do you claim to
created
believe
everything, which includes
in your imagination,
like
put
the
it to
law of
reality.
conservation of energy, the law of conservation
Give
of
us
mass,
good reason.
which would mean he could.
My point, Zero, is that if God creates these things, he is creating them out of nothing, which is not causality as we understand it, nor can we even conceive of that kind of process. It would
Securing
be
A,
even if we were to watch it happen.
Hardcore domination. Dig in and hold the objective. This one's going to be a nail biter.
They're the ones that
you have to make an argument as to why God would be the efficient cause.
Nothing,
otherwise, it's not coherent. Because when we look at causality on
Closing
local
with
experience,
Baker.
we have a multitude of different causes. You have your efficient cause, which you think is what God is for the universe.
Dug in at
And that's
Baker.
the initiation or the actor that starts the cause and effect.
The lead's ours. Hold on to it.
When we observe causality in our local experience, we also have a material cause, which is the medium out of which the cause and effect relationship is made. So if I were to give you an analogy, take a table, for instance, the efficient cause would be the actor that is creating the table, so the carpenter would be the
Hostile recon spotted.
The material cause would be the wood, glue, lacquer, and nails that the table is made of. So the carpenter reassembles all of these things into the table. And then the formal cause would be the table itself. And then the final cause would be whatever the carpenter created before, but that one's not entirely relevant to what we're talking about here. So what you are arguing is that God is the efficient cause and the universe is the formal cause, but you're excluding the material cause. You want to say that God just created the universe out of absolutely nothing. He just did it somehow.
Yeah.
Which is not a mechanic that any of us can comprehend. It's utterly devoid of meaning compared to how we presently understand causality. So you're not arguing
Recon
for
plane
causality.
scanning the area.
When I ask you why did the universe require a cause, I'm asking you for the efficient and the material cause of the universe, and you just want to give me the efficient cause. You're trying to argue
Losing
you can
objective
get a home run
Baker.
without a ball.
See them taking the
But
Baker.
you can't get a home run without a bat. So please explain to me how the universe can be causal if there was ever a state of affairs where it didn't exist.
Way too much technical language. We're going to solve that. So, why does the universe need to be created?
Recon flight mission deployed.
Why? Because if it always existed, meaning if it existed for infinite.
Then there's no room for my God, and my God has to have room.
There'd be an infinite amount of time before this current level.
I knew I had that one.
That was nice. Headshot too.
I do have a question for you, Zero.
Behind me.
God that created this?
I kind of want to go down this line of reasoning.
Enemy recon on flyby.
So, sure, okay, go ahead.
So, yes, there can be a
You had it coming.
It was sloppy, but I got it.
Doesn't mean we can't get to the
no reason to think that because there's infinite
Hostile
power,
recon in the
that
air.
never gets to the
Spies in the sky.
Flakes flying around.
There's an infinite number of things between 1 and 2 when we put it to 2. So like there's an infinite number of points like on the edge of the circle. So
keep coming up behind us.
Set. It's a complete set. So if you like say 0.99999, there's infinitely many 9s there. But how did it get to 1?
Placing stun line.
There's a complete set before this moment. So if you say infinite, what you're saying is the complete set before this moment. So if there's an infinite amount of time before this moment, it's going to be for this moment.
So you brought up 1 and 2. Yeah, there's an infinite amount of numbers between 1 and 2. Yeah. However, to get to 2, you have to like 2 is essentially like inaccessible if you're going by 1.999.
Why am I so
blind? If you're going by that.
You're always going to be at some number. So imagine if you start counting 1.000001. Well, how did you get to 1.00001? There's infinitely many numbers before that. You had to start counting somewhere. There has to be a number where they start. So even if there's an infinite past, and if the past started infinitely in the past, we're there. We're at the present moment. We're at the counting moment.
Dead in my bones.
So there has to be a present moment. Even if there's an infinite past, there's going to always be at least one present moment.
I cannot get.
We're in it.
I gotta switch my gameplay here.
They got recon in the sky.
Went this way.
Okay, I think I understood. That because
long shots.
Recon. But we can still reach present because.
Why can we not get to B?
We're
going to C. Fuck's sake. Let's get B. We know we can get B.
Yeah, so if there's an infinite past, at some point in the past, sometime it was the present. So if you're saying you can't get to the present moment, what you're saying is that the present moment is before now. It's like a billion years before now. So how can you ever get from that present moment to this present moment? But that means there's already a present moment. There has to be a present moment at some point.
What the fuck? Is he inside the truck or something?
Has infinite amount of time.
Enemy glide bomb incoming.
Always going to be a present moment.
Sticky bomb. Holding behind. Push back.
Can't even see the fuckers. Fucking probably the worst map on this game.
But like, okay, so what about before? What about before
sloppy as shit. We're gonna do that.
How would that be considered present?
Well, the present isn't based on our consciousness, it's based on reality. So reality is the present moment, whatever is currently happening in reality.
I'm not talking about consciousness. Existence is like fact.
Right. So like whatever exists at any point in time, that is the present moment.
We are a part of this universe or this cosmos, and it doesn't matter whether we're here or not. We see people come and go throughout our lives, and the universe carries on. I'm curious, zeroing about the argument you're putting forward, because it sounded like you're saying that there's one deity created it all. Have you got reason to think that it's only one and not a group of multiple deities that did it? And why would one argument be more compelling than the other in this case?
Why would there be multiple deities? God can create like other deities. There can be a God that creates them. Well, are you saying they could exist at like all at the same time?
Well, so you're saying that our cosmos, our universe, was created by one deity, and I'm asking how you know for certain that it wasn't created by a group of deities, multiple deities working together, instead of just one deity doing it all on their own.
So I mean, I feel like there's more of a, well, you have to go into it, so that there's more than one deity that's doing it all.
Okay, but how do you? But I mean, is there something that we can look at to know for certain that it was indeed only one deity that created this universe and not multiple deities?
There's nothing for sure, but it's simpler, more reasonable to say it was one deity.
Oh, okay. So what you're doing is you're favoring the explanation that sounds simpler. Is that correct?
What's even simpler is to not even consider a god. That's even simpler.
Occam's razor.
Go ahead, King Xerxes.
Yeah, it's called Occam's razor when you favor the simplest explanation. If there's lesser assumed variables, the explanation with the lesser assumed variables. Now again, this actually only applies to a paradigm when you have two equally valid explanations for a particular phenomenon, but one of them has lesser assumptions than the other. When Occam's razor is predicated that the explanation with the least amount of assumptions is going to be the more likely explanation. But the problem here is that when it comes to the origins of the universe, anything we could posit about the origins of the universe would be an assumption because we just simply don't know. We have plenty of physical models to explain how certain origins or catalysts might have occurred, but what we don't have is any precedent for something that exists that doesn't bear any of the same characteristics as the universe or as existence the way we observe it, and somehow facilitated a state of affairs, a transition in state of affairs where the universe did not exist to a state of affairs where the universe did exist. We have no evidence whatsoever that there was ever such a state of affairs where the universe didn't exist, or that the universe could have arrived from a state of non-existence like that. It's just incoherent to us. So you have hundreds of assumptions for any kind of God creating the universe, whereas we don't assume anything when we just posit that perhaps the universe wasn't created at all, other than maybe the universe wasn't created. That's our singular assumption.
I gotta go. Thanks, guys. Randall, try giving the intro at the end. See if that helps with any of the boost things. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.
Thank you, T-Jump.
Those skills. Charlie, locked down. They're taking Baker. I knew I had that one. Baker is overrun. Capturing Baker. Allied glide bomber on the way. I knew I had that one. Planting stun mine. Closing with Able. Able is ours. We took the advantage. They're taking Charlie. Closing with Charlie. Hostile recon in the air. Spies in the sky. We hold Charlie. Taking Baker. Able is lost. We hold Baker. We're in the lead. Losing objective Baker. Securing Able. They're taking Charlie. They got recon in the sky. Heads up, enemy glide bomb coming in hot. Losing objective Charlie. Capturing Able. They're taking Charlie. I had that one. We're falling behind. Push back.
I don't think we can know how much there is to know.
That is exactly right.
I don't think we can even know what order of magnitudes, or even order of magnitude of things. Yeah.
Would you say it's a small number?
What you mean? What my percentage of knowledge of facts about the universe?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't even think that really makes sense as a claim, because like, what is a knowledge? Like, are the units here? I mean. In a way, there's an infinite number of things to know, because every time another nanosecond passes, all the particles in the entire universe have changed state and have moved around, and then there's suddenly 10 to the 80 new pieces of information, or you could just call that one piece of information. It depends where's the granularity on what a thing to know is.
For the sake of letting you do for the sake of letting you go down the train that you're like the track that you're trying to take us down, I'll say I know very, very little from the when weighed against the universe.
I'll say 69%.
Okay.
That's a good number.
Jeez, okay. So we have a small number and a big number. So let's start with the small number. So what I would do mathematically, it's just a little trick that I'm trying to apply here, is that you would take everything, which is 100%, and subtract it. So if you know 1%, then you would subtract 1% from 100%, and then you're left with 99.999 gray area. If you say
not even gray, it's not even gray. It's a black area.
Well,
let's say I know like virtually nothing. Where's your evidence?
I think we could use a reductio ad absurdum argument here and prove that there's evidence within all the space that this is the stuff you don't know. So we could use the reductio ad absurdum to say, well, you don't know what all this stuff is. So how are we able to?
You don't have evidence, but you're saying that somewhere in all the stuff we don't know, maybe there's evidence.
Well, there's a certain. Would you agree there are certain types of evidence? Right?
Wait a minute, you said you had scientific evidence for God,
and now you're doing there might be evidence out there. Like I'll agree. If someone wants to, if you're making the claim that there might be evidence for God out there, okay, I accept that.
There is evidence.
Two types of
Well, you're making the claim there is it. But you need to give us this evidence.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that there's so many different kinds. I'm going to raise one called transrational evidence. So transrational evidence would be somewhat of a new term that I'm creating, but I feel it's necessary to create this new form of evidence so we can understand that there are things we don't know before we get there, but we do have evidence for if we could put the pieces together. So
let me ask you something. Okay, so I think of an unsolved crime, and if I were to go to the police and say, hey, you know this unsolved murder that you have? I have evidence that Zeno did it. And they were like, you do? And I said, yes, I have scientific evidence that Zeno did it. And the detective goes, okay, let me have the evidence. And I said, well, you know all that shit that you don't know about the universe? It's out there.
Exactly.
Okay, greatly put. I like, well said. So, when we're talking about a god, this isn't going to be a little bit different than the courtroom method, because now we're talking about, I'm not going to say something supernatural, but we're talking about something a bit more complicated than like a murder case, right? Because we know people get away with shit all the time.
Why is it more complicated?
All the time.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't see why it's different. I mean, you're trying to prove beyond reasonable doubt. I mean, or maybe you're trying to prove even, or however you want to like explain your evidence. But like, why is it more complicated? We shouldn't be putting anyone in jail until we have enough evidence that they definitely did it.
Yeah, and I'm just talking about like, when is it time to believe something? We always refer to this question of when is it time to believe something, and it's when there's evidence is typically something people can agree on, unless they're really committed to faith. So, yeah, this whole thing started with you said you had scientific evidence for God, and now you're talking about the evidence exists somewhere out in the ether and the unknown, and I'm wondering if you'd be willing at this point to admit that you don't have scientific evidence, or present the scientific evidence if you're still keeping it in your pocket somewhere.
Hold on. Yeah, so the scientific evidence is using a form of math to apply to the science. We do apply math to science, and we're working backwards, so we have to reverse engineer. Scientifically, we know that we live in this demonstrably large world. We know it's large, we know it's expanding. We can prove it's expanding. So we know for a fact that we're on a pale blue dot, which is so small, so tiny in comparison to the world. This is all science. So we're working backwards. We understand there's a lot of stuff out there scientifically. So the evidence technically is right in front of you. Technically, but you have to be able to put the pieces together scientifically.
So I'm just gonna follow what you're putting. So we're small. There's a lot of stuff we don't know, and that is not evidence for anything.
Yeah, all we have is the knowledge that we do know.
What am I not putting together? Help me out. There's stuff that we don't know.
Okay, what? All right, so we're not able to put together. Why? I got to wrap up soon. I know you guys got to move on. But we're not putting together all the tiny pieces of what makes up the universe and why it has functionality.
Well, what does any of that have to do with the God?
I mean, also we are. Like, I mean, every piece of knowledge we have, we can put together, and that's kind of like our body of scientific knowledge for the whole of humanity, isn't it? I mean, what pieces do we need to put together that we have to lead to any kind of evidence for God? I can't see it. Can you? Maybe a better way to ask this is: can you explain why your argument is different to we know 1% of the things in the universe, therefore God? Like, I don't see how it's different to. It sounds like you're saying there is a lot out there to know, so there's probably evidence for God out there. I don't see the difference between that and your argument.
Oh, well, I guess I should have defined God like any,
Well, any God would do.
God to me is. Well, no, I don't believe in the magic guy with the beard, but I'm just talking about the first domino to start all of this. I would call that God, if that could simplify.
I mean, yeah, you could make if you want to make a definition for God as like the thing that caused the universe. I mean, or even if you just wanted to say, God is the thing that caused the universe, then we can say, well, there's some kind of cause for the universe, whether the universe is just like looping around, or whether it was created or something, or whether it just appeared naturally. But if you just call that God, then you might be calling just like a process of physics God, or you might be calling like an infinite loop that's always existed God. And that, I mean, that's kind of like saying. Yeah, but that's. I mean, I feel like that's a very uninteresting definition for God, because it's like saying,
I'm not saying that it's omnipotent. I'm saying it's just the first cause.
Well, if you want to say...
Giving it properties like...
We don't even... Yeah, but we don't even know... I mean, for all we know...
We don't know there was a first cause.
For all we know, the universe is, past eternal. And there's lots of models out there about our universe becoming all at first cause in this way that you're
ready at your order.
The case for it, which is going great, by the way. The thing that I am wondering is just where is the evidence though? There hasn't been any evidence. It's just arguments from ignorance, arguments from incredulity, and that's it.
So the evidence. First, do you know what transrationalism is?
No, I'm just regularly rational, I guess. I have not.
I'm just trans.
Yeah, Katie is both trans and rational. I'm just rational. I'm cis rational.
So transrational typically goes beyond what science could tell us right now. That's the transrationalism of
when we get hang on a second. When we say goes beyond what science can tell us, I mean what science is here is the method we know how to explore, the best way we have to find out what is true, and we do that through experimentation and observation. And testing things, making predictions, and seeing if the predictions come through. That's what science is. So if we wanted to prove, whether something exists, one way we could do it is go up and touch it, take a photo of it, get someone else to go up and touch it, see if it's it's still there the next day. We can do all these experiments to see if something exists, and that's kind of using science to find out whether it exists. You're saying there's another way. Find out whether something is true or not, then you kind of need to demonstrate that it can even find out things that are true. A good example of this would be comparing medicine to prayer when healing something. We can use science to test whether the medicine works, and we can use science to test whether the prayer works by looking to see if we have 1 million people and we have a control group and we give medicine to some, we give prayer to some of them. We can look at the rates in which they heal, but then we're just doing science. We're just looking at the evidence. I mean, that's what doing science is. But you're saying there's another way to know whether something's true. What is that way, and how do we show, without using science, that it works?
It's a way of knowing things about the unknown.
How can we predict something without testing to see whether your prediction is true?
So you're going to have to use transrationalism. So you have to be able... here's a good thought experiment. So 1,000 years ago, could you prove the events that are happening today 1,000 years ago without the evidence to show? You probably could not provide any evidence whatsoever, but we know it exists today. So a good transrational argument would be to understand that another 1,000 years will pass and we will have more technology, even though we can't give you tangible evidence of it, but we should understand through transrationalism.
I hate when people say tangible evidence, like there's intangible evidence. You can't give evidence. Let's just be honest. Let's cut through all the bullshit, because what you're talking about is making assumptions about what is not known, which is not transrationalism. That's just not being rational. So you can't be not rational and then use a word with rational in it and pretend it's rational. That I can't let that happen. So if someone was making claims about what's gonna happen 1,000 years from now, and say, oh, I know these things are going to happen because there's a lot of shit that we don't know about the universe right now, I would not have any reason to think that what they were saying is accurate.
Okay, so Kenneth, have you ever invested in anything or created anything? I could circle this back around really quick before I leave. So,
are you sure you want to do that and not just give the evidence for your stuff? Because you said you had scientific evidence for God.
I'm giving evidence. I think the evidence that I'm giving is transrationalism evidence, and I'm trying to walk you guys through what that looks like.
It's not evidence.
But it's not.
It's not evidence.
It's a form of evidence.
No, it's not. If you can't use any of this bullshit to demonstrate that anything you're saying is true, it's not evidence. It's just bullshit.
Well, no, the evidence. So, all right.
Okay, I've got another angle. Hang on. How about we're using your transrational thing? How is it the case that we can't use your transrational? Like, we're using transrational to say there's evidence for God. can I not just use transrational to say there's evidence of a giant space frog wizard? Like, what in transrational says that that's not possible?
Well, you're giving the properties of, you're giving me properties of something I can't see. I'm not giving you the properties of a god. So I'm not telling you what it looks like.
You gave me one property and you said that it was the first mover.
Yeah.
No, one property would be, it is the beginning of your universe. I'm not telling you what
okay, well, I'm saying that there's something that was the beginning of your god, and it's a frog wizard called Carlos. I don't know, like...
And you're making assumptions about the properties of our universe.
Touche. Say that again, sir?
You're making assumptions about the properties of our universe. Properties that could be explained by a space frog wizard.
So, wait. So this is why I spoke of earlier, how much do you think you know about the world? And the reason I brought that up is because all the area that you don't understand is what we need to learn about. And
but unfortunately, I know just enough about the world to know that nothing that you're saying makes sense. Because, and that's the thing. That's the thing about how we think is more important than like the sum total of what we know. If you have like some basic critical thinking skills, then you don't have to know a whole bunch of shit to know that making stuff up about the unknown isn't a good way to arrive at conclusions.
And that's demonstrated.
Very well said, but a long time ago, we used to believe things that are clearly false now, so we have to go into the same ideology that maybe 1,000 years later, we're going to be like, oh, we had all this shit wrong. And
I agree with you already.
Progress.
I've already agreed with you that there might be evidence for God, like, that we just haven't discovered, possibly. But we don't have it, so we can't strongly say whether there is or there isn't out there.
It would be disingenuous
all we can
to
say is that we
now.
don't have it yet. I mean, it's, the way, kind of what I'm thinking of, I don't know if this really makes sense, but like, if we arrive at like a big meadow, like huge meadow that goes off to the horizon, and someone's like, oh, I wonder if there's like a 7-leaf clover here. And I can look down at my feet and be like, well, I can see like 100 clover plants, and they're all 3 leaves. And then it feels like you're turning up and saying, well, there's so many clovers here, like, we only know 1% of the field, so therefore, there is a 7-leaf clover. And we're like, hang on, no.
Well, no, I'm turning up.
Well, like, we can go and look for all the clovers, and that might take 1 billion years, but right now I'm just saying, yeah, maybe there is, but we don't right now we have not looked at enough clovers to say for sure there is or there isn't.
Okay. So that's where the evidence lies. When you say not right now, we're making a claim based off of time that not at this moment we don't, but we know that we will, and that's what
we might not.
Rationalism comes in. That's not evidence. Later, we're going to have more evidence.
Later we'll have more evidence, but we might eventually explore the whole universe and find out there's no God. I mean, right?
The clover thing was that was perfect, man. She teed it up for you. Like saying we may have evidence later ain't evidence now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think.
All right. Well, Zeno, you have a great rest of your day, and I don't know, like maybe think some more about what constitutes evidence.
There is one possible thing we didn't think of, Kevin, and that is that Zeno might have been a 4-dimensional being, because it just seemed to be in a situation where time didn't really matter. Like, just because we don't know it now, we know it in the future. And like, if you've been to the future and you are claiming that we find the evidence of God, I mean, 1, please come back to time and bring it for us, and then 2, cool, take me traveling.
Hey, I'm gonna blaze through our announcements, and then we've got one last follow that I very much want to get to. It's sort of like a special guest. Real quick, I'm just gonna go through this. Below the chat, we've got that fundraiser. Please donate to the SSA. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, become a member, hit that join button. I have mentioned the Patreon, tiny.cc/PatreonTH. If you too would like the opportunity to have your name read by an authentic British person. Which, I mean, that doesn't just come along everywhere. How many YouTube channels can even offer that? Think about it. We also have a channel that houses... Well, that's Katie's YouTube channel. That is true. We have a channel that houses all of the shows of the ACA in audio podcast form. Find that at tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. You can become part of the Talk Human community on our fan-run Facebook page as well at tiny.cc/THT. If you want to continue the discussion after the show, you would be a fool to not join Katie over in ACD, our fan-run Discord server at tiny.cc/ACA Discord. And look, many have said the flagship show of the ACA is The Nonprofits, which will air live at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time today at tiny.cc/YTNP. Don't sleep on the Nonprofits, people. Go check them out. Real quick, I want to go to the crew cam as well and just thank all of the wonderful, lovely, talented, I'm running out of adjectives, the great people who made this happen. Oh my god, what is happening with yeah, like, oh my god, they've cloned our producers. Okay. Well, with all of that out of the way, let's get to something good here. We've got Clara on the line. Clara, will you tell our audience who you are?
Hi, I'm Clara. I'm the president of the Secular Student Alliance, the ETSA. I've been the president since 2019, and I've been trying to work with the group for quite a while now, but we're just basically starting over after the pandemic this semester, so we're trying to rebuild the group.
How would you, for people who don't know what the SSA... I was going to say, for people who don't know what the SSA is, who may not have heard the start of the show, how would you define or explain the work that the SSA does?
What do you do there?
Yeah, what the hell's going on?
Oh, okay. For UTSA specifically, there is 25 plus religious groups on campus, and there's only students to stay for non-religious groups, students on campus. So if there's no SSA, there's nothing for people who are atheists. We provide representation and support to those students. It's hard enough being an atheist on your own in Texas. So without a group for community and to be there for you, people that can. I am a little nervous. But,
no, don't be.
No, you're doing great.
Yeah. This is what I was drawing attention to at the beginning of the show was, it was the same thing when I was in college. I mean, San Diego is a much more conservative place than people realize, and on campus there's freaking everybody of every religious, stripe. But if you were not part of that, if you just wanted a place to be a humanist and a skeptic and an atheist and hang out with some homies, the SSA was the only game in town for us on campus.
Exactly. Right, exactly. There's, as I said, there's so many groups of religious people, and there's just us, and that's it. And we've been around since 2013, in some form or another, and we just try to be there for those students. A lot of them are from really tough backgrounds, and they don't have anybody that really understands them or can, I don't know, just help them work through their trying to get out of religion.
Yeah. So, what are the best ways that people can support what you guys do at the SSA, both on a local and a national level?
The national level has a website, secularstudents.org, and they can donate to that. If they don't want to donate to our chapter, they can donate through their website and support them. Or they can also get more information about that from the website as well. And then we have our own
I just looked at the fundraiser, and I'm hopeful that between Truth Wanted, us, and AXP, we're gonna blow your fundraising needs away today. I think you're gonna get there. Let me ask
Keep
you.
going, everyone. We can do this. Let's get past that line. If we can do it by the end of the show, that'd be incredible.
Yeah. Anybody who's sitting there who's on the fence about donating, if you are able to, this would be a great time to watch that number go up, and we can celebrate here.
We can live on air.
Let me ask you this, and I know this isn't something that you prefer. I'm springing this on you. You didn't sign anything here. If you could,
your favorite live Pokemon?
If there was anything that we could make happen as a community for your SSA chapter this year, and dream big, what would it be? Let's talk about it.
Oh goodness, I have no idea. Wow. We've had a lot of guest speakers come. Like, really.
Who was the worst?
Pretty.
Don't answer that.
It's tennis, obviously.
I was being an asshole. I said, who was the worst speaker?
Come all the time.
Yeah.
Worst.
Who would you? Don't answer that. Who would you like to see come as a guest speaker?
Obviously me.
Oh wow. Of course.
Yeah.
I don't know. Wow. Dreaming big. We've had quite a few come before in the past. Like we had Dan Barker come. Matt Dillahunt's been there a couple of times, I think. Let me think. We just had Andrew Seidel do a talk this semester.
Awesome. Andrew Seidel's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
Yeah.
If you think of it here, in the next few minutes, let us know, because all of the coolest atheists on the planet watch Talk Heathen, and if they hear you say it, they're going to be like, oh, okay, I got to book a flight to San Antonio and make this happen. Okay.
Just pick random names to the chat. Be like, I'd really like Atheist 69 to come and speak
Exactly.
at the...
Exactly. Well, let me ask you one last thing, and I'm moderately sorry for putting you on the spot. How did you get involved with the SSA?
Oh wow. Back in 2016, quite a while ago.
Maybe before
I was just starting. Yeah, that was just starting. I went back to school for the second time, and I was just kind of wandering around on campus. I was an older student, so I was like, everybody seemed like kids to me. And I was just like wandering around, and I came across the SSA tabling. And I talked to them for a little while, and they encouraged me to come to a meeting. And I would sit in the back and just kind of observe, and I was really shy, and I didn't really, talk to anybody. But I eventually came out of my shell and started talking to them more and more. And then, surprise, I'll be president in 2019. That's just, I don't know. If I was, I would have never imagined that I would become president when I first started, Yeah, and it's just been an amazing experience being able to lead the group of students.
Do you guys have street preachers that come on your campus?
Yeah, I was going to say, what's been your...
Frequently. And they love to come to our table and talk to us, too.
Although, I may be wrong about this, but I think you also have Anthony Magdabosco that comes on your campus from time to time.
Oh, yes. He comes to he comes to speak to our group every semester, and he used to do street epistemology on campus there.
That's so good for you guys.
I think he's gotten out of that now because he's concentrating more on doing the nonprofit for street epistemology.
Anthony works harder than a lot of people know. He's doing a lot there and has worked for years with Recovering for Religion, and Anthony's doing great work. Well, all right. Well, if you haven't thought of your all-time dream guest to come out there, we know it's Katie. I know you just don't want to embarrass her. Then we'll cut you loose. But I'm seeing that the fundraising numbers are going up. Every time I've refreshed over here, it's gone up a little bit. So
we so appreciate it. We very much appreciate it because like I said, we're starting over. We literally started the semester with just me and our vice president and Cody, who was on the Talk Heathen or the Truth Wanted show on Friday. Cody volunteered out of the blue, without meeting either of us, just because he was so excited and enthusiastic about what the SSA was as an organization. And
did Cody speak during the Truth Wanted episode on Friday? Was Cody one of the people that was up there? Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yes, he said he's going to be calling in to the atheist experience later.
Okay,
Cool.
spoiler alert.
Well, everyone should go and check that out, though. That'd be cool.
Well, thank you to everybody who's donating. That's awesome. And my little Grinch heart gets all warm and fuzzy when I see us all coming together as a community. I think it's the coolest thing. So thank you for the work that you're doing, for volunteering. College is hard enough without taking on extra responsibilities and trying to build a community on your campus, especially in an area where you are as a skeptic maybe a little bit outdone. So hats off to you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's interesting for me to try and put myself in those kind of shoes, because in the UK it's not very common for people to be part of religious societies and stuff at universities. I mean, I didn't even really consider joining an atheist group just because most of the people I knew were atheists. So it's cool.
Yeah, it's not like here at all. It's like, if you don't belong to one of the religious groups, they kind of look at you weird. And we've had people.
Sorry, go ahead. No, you. I insist.
Yeah, you go ahead. You're the guest.
We've had students say that they've lost friends over it when they found out that they were atheists, and that they just stopped talking to them. So it's kind of a sad situation, Like, people that they thought we were good friends. I mean, that even happened to me. Like, I thought I was good friends with this one girl, and she just stopped talking to me after she found out I was the president of the society.
Well, people, I think that most people don't realize sort of the reality of what that's like.
Recon flight mission deployed.
Many parts of the United States and globally, but it's one of those things that, I mean, I SSA chapter at San Diego State in my senior year, and people would ask about this. They're going, why do you spend your time doing this? And
I get that question a lot too.
And they have no idea.
Closing with Charlie.
There was, they had no idea. The response that people get socially, even from family members, people being disowned by their families for apostasy and this kind of thing. It really is vital that there are places where all of us can come together. And I was saying to Katie before the show that it's kind of like how boring and silly my life is. That I was on my couch. I was watching like a World War II documentary. I'd walked my dog.
He's a World War II nerd.
Yeah, I'm a nerd. I'm a big nerd about World War II right now. And I was going. I thought about making a TikTok of just like, hey, this is what atheists do. I have a living room because I'm just a normal person, and a couch, and I sit here and I watch TV and I hang out with my family, and I'm just a person. And I think that there's value in groups like the SSA letting people know that we exist. There's nothing wrong with us. We're normal people who are guilty of the crime of thinking about stuff and having doubts.
Yeah, so. I mean, that's why I do these shows, is because I had quite an easy experience in coming out of as an atheist. I didn't lose any friends. I didn't even lose my one religious friend. And I've never been sort of persecuted for it or anything. And I kind of just forgot about it. And like earlier in the show, maybe it's before the show, I can't remember actually, but Kenneth was saying, when do you stop sort of deconstructing or stopping being religious? And I think for me, I did. I think I just got to the point where I just didn't think about religion anymore. It was just done. I didn't worry about God. It didn't even enter my mind for a long time, many years. And then I sort of got back into arguing on the internet and discovered some different channels. And I think it was Prophet of Zod who was saying that when he sort of came out as an atheist, loads of his friends and family and community dropped him, and he came out as an atheist. And as an LGBT person who had struggled with coming out, it hit me like, what the hell is this stupid atheist on, comparing the struggle to coming out of an atheist, absolutely easy compared to coming out as an LGBT person. And I listened to the story, and then to some other people, and was like, no, it's the same. Like, you lose friends and family, you can lose respect, you can lose your job, you could And I knew that as an LGBT person, the thing that made the most difference for me in accepting myself, coming out, dealing with my life and stuff was just seeing other LGBT people, all the different types, because, you know, I can see this trans woman doing this, or this person doing this, or whatever, and they aren't necessarily like me, but if there is enough of them out there, there'll be one, and I'll be like, wow, their background is like mine, their situation is like mine, and they are thriving as a person, and it made me feel like I could do it, and I just thought, well, I want to use the strength I have in having an easier situation to show other atheists that, or people sitting on the edges, that can have a good life and be an atheist, and whether, you know, you're in a difficult place to do that, where you're in the vast minority or not. I mean, there's so many different people, and I hope that, you know, that makes the difference. So yeah, it's a good thing to do. Sorry, I didn't mean to just go off talking about me loads, but...
No, it's fine. No, it's like, it sounds like you totally understand. Like I've been an atheist my whole life, you know, and it took really getting involved with the SSA to make me, like, really realize that I needed to be, do more activism about my atheism, because I was kind of like, you know, just kind of like, whatever, you know, but it was seeing that, like, there's so many laws being passed that are working against our interests, and that we need to, like, do something about that, you know, like, because the religious, you know, organizations are getting so political. Well, there has to be some pushback.
Yeah. Well, enemy recon on flyby. Okay, look, I know you didn't want to say that you want to have, like, a massive atheist festival with, like, a TheHTDuck's concert at your campus, but
oh, no,
we'll do it.
Yeah.
We can start working on it. That's all I'm trying to say.
Good luck with it.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, have a great rest of your day, everybody. Go watch AXP after you're done watching the flagship show of the ACA, the nonprofits. So you can keep on supporting the work that the SSA is doing, and I think we're gonna get there, Clara, with the fundraiser. So this is gonna be exciting today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for putting on the fundraiser and coming to the campus to do the show. That was awesome. It was a great show.
Atheist community.
Boom. That's it.
Yeah.
All right, Clara. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
It's funny. I was in the chat. I was like, let's do. We had a couple more callers queuing up. I was like, let's do one more. And I don't know where they went. So I think that we are at the tail end of yet another. Talk to me then. Thank you, everybody who tuned in today. Katie, thank you for. I wish we got a chance to host more stuff together. That's just me.
Yeah, well, maybe we should organize that scenario.
There we go. And if there was a TheHTDuck's concert, I'd go to San Antonio for that.
Yeah, we need a bassist.
Just saying. Oh, well, I can't help you there. But
any bassist. I need evidence that bassists exist.
We need evidence.
Call in.
Somewhere in the unknown, there is a bassist.
I'm not convinced that
there's scientific evidence that there's an unknown bassist out there for you. All right. Hey, can we get some love rings going and make a return trip to the land of the crew cam and just thank everybody? This is the first time in like months that I haven't said crew cram and made a joke about secular sexuality. So go me. And our oh my god, this is I don't even know how to feel about what I'm seeing right now, other than grateful for those wonderful people who make the show happen. Thank you to our mods on YouTube who just shovel so much bullshit that's directed our way. We appreciate you guys, all screeners, everybody, for making this happen. All right, listen, viewers, we love you. Whether or not you believe, if you're an essential worker, thank you for continuing to make the world go round in these crazy times. If you don't believe, this is your community. Get plugged into groups like the SSA. Get plugged into our Facebook group and come hang out on Discord. Katie's going to be there. That alone should be enough to get half of you people to go join. And if you do believe, we don't hate you.
We're just not convinced.
want the truth. So watch Truth Wanted live Friday at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.
Glide bomb armed and ready. Direct hit. Glide bomb incoming. Got an enemy dog 3 out there. Taking Charlie.
Show yourself.
Enemy recon. Spy in the skies.
Calling for overhead recon.
Recon.
One shot.
Incoming bomb! Clear out! Hostile recon mission aloft!
It's time to get sexy. So watch Secular Sexuality live Thursday, 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Hello everyone, welcome to Talk Even. Today is Sunday, May 15th, 2022. I'm your host, Kenneth Leonard, and joining me today is the always exceptional Canadian Montgomery. For those watching, you can see we're joining you from a sort of flower bed. This is the prettiest background I've ever seen. That's right, that's right. Hey, Talk Even is a live call-in show. We have open lines, so get your calls in at 512-991-9242 or from your computer at tiny.cc/callth. We're waiting on calls right now. So while we're waiting for people to call in, and I personally, I've been on TikTok all week. People have been telling me how wrong and silly and stupid I am all week, and I cannot wait for those people to call. I've asked them to come and explain how stupid and wrong I am, so we can all look forward to that, I'm sure. I'm gonna.
I can do it if the call is going.
You could, right? Yeah, we could. That should be the theme of the show. How stupid and wrong is Kenneth? Katie can help. The callers can help. It just can be a community building thing. So, but in the meantime, while we're waiting for the people to call, I'm gonna knock out a couple quick announcements. Talk Even is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin. It's a 501c3 organization dedicated to the promotion of positive atheist culture and the separation of religion and government. Now, listen. We're doing something special for you. Normally we do a fundraiser for the ACA. But this past Friday, Truth Wanted did a live call-in show thing where, well, not a call-in show, it's like there's the audience there. You should go watch it. It was great. They did this live show from the campus at University of Texas at San Antonio. Truth Wanted dedicated its fundraiser to help support the Secular Student Alliance chapter at UTSA. And while the show was awesome, they were able to raise almost $2,000 for the SSA over there. They didn't quite reach their fundraising goal. So today, Talk Even, the Atheist Experience, we're joining in that fundraiser. Okay? So simply look underneath the live chat, you'll see 100% of our donations that are collected today is going to help support the chapter of the SSA. We We would love to reach that fundraising goal. $5,000 today. The last day for fundraisers. This amount would be enough to fund the SSA in San Antonio for a full year. As generous as you can. And I'll say, the SSA is near and dear to my heart. Story time. We're still waiting for callers. So when I
so you know, I suck today.
I don't think I've ever told this story.
Why?
Oh, exciting.
So,
and you're telling it on the flower bed.
That's right. Here, I just feel so
at home, safe,
vulnerable. I guess I don't know. So when I'd gotten out of the army and I was going to school, I was at San Diego State University, and I was recently not a Christian anymore, but I didn't quite know where I fit in, and I very recently started to go, I believe in God anymore. And I used to like to go to the school bookstore and just get like bargain books and I walked through the student bookstore, and there was this book that was on the clearance rack called Letters to a Young Contrarian by a fellow by the name of Christopher Hitchens. And so I was sitting in a hall ahead of one of my classes, and I'm sitting there reading this book, Letters to a Young Contrarian, and someone walking by goes, "Are you an atheist?" And I said, "What?" And they go, "You're reading Christopher Hitchens. You're an atheist, right?" And I was like, "I don't know." What? And they said, "You should come to a Secular Student Alliance meeting." And I said, "What's that?" And they explained that it's a group on campuses for secular, humanist, atheist students to come together and have some community, to do outreach in the community. And it was awesome for me. I got plugged into the SSA. I met some incredible people there at San Diego State doing that. Got to do outreach in the community, outreach on campus. It was great for me. And for most people, when they come onto a college campus, if they're religious, if they want to get plugged into religious groups on their campuses, they are readily available. But for secular students, there's not a whole lot. The SSA sort of fills that need for community, and it's an excellent organization. I highly recommend checking it out and supporting it if you can.
So basically what you're saying is you were a good boy, God-fearing Christian, and then you went to university, and then you got indoctrinated by the evil Satanist cult who caught you because you were reading an evil book, and then it's ruined your life.
I was reading the evil book, and yeah, that was a life-changing book for me. I've been engaging a lot with people lately who are deconstructing, and my deconstruction, I don't know if it ever really ends, but it was, I think, most intense about a decade ago now. And going to school for me was this process, because I'd grown up in evangelical circles. I'd been a young Earth creationist. I'd been taught that David Martin was a credible historian. Just not great stuff, you know. So for me, going to college was this thing where, while most people in my classes would be sitting there bored, I'd be like looking around like, "Are you guys hearing this shit? This is incredible!" like the whole time. So they're like, of course. Anyway, let's see. Katie, really quick, what do you have going on? Is there anything you want to tell the kids about?
I don't know. I don't know if we've got that much exciting at all going on at the moment. Just kind of chugging along, fighting for LGBT rights around the world, which is incredibly stressful at the moment, as always, but I think worse than ever. Or worse than ever in my lifetime, anyway. We seem to be in like full swing on the swing. Sorry, it's an accidental pun. On the like pendulum swing of acceptance for LGBT people. We had this kind of big positive push around gay marriage being legalized around the world, or in lots of countries, and now it's kind of falling back, and it's very depressing and disappointing, and yay!
I wonder, because I wonder about parallels between LGBT rights and say LGBT now because there's so many other groups. Like you could keep going with QIA plus and all that. Of course, I don't want to exclude anybody.
LGBT plus or
right.
I use
right,
LGBT to mean everyone. I'm not trying to be specifically only lesbian, bisexual.
No, I know. I just if there's some kid at home who's not LGBT or T and they're going, what about me? I just want you to know you're included. That's all. There's a parallel I think with abortion here in the United States where I think that if we were to look at polling data and the numbers, that acceptance of people regardless of orientation or identity is growing in the same way that support for abortion rights is overwhelming in the United States.
Yeah.
But that the people who are opposing these things are just noisy and persistent and dedicated. Do you take any sort of like, I don't know, are you hopeful? Because I know it's exhausting.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's not just a parallel. I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same push to take away, the freedom to live your life how you want. Any different from the kind of family value view of the world, which is often from religion, but not always. It's this kind of patriarchal view of what a family should look like, and women should be at home, cooking and churning out babies, and LGBT people shouldn't exist because they mess up families. In that sense, they don't at all. But and it's all the same thing. But yeah, you're totally right that acceptance in general is growing, but the laws seem to be going the opposite way. And there's a number of reasons why that is. But I'm hopeful for the long term, because short of some kind of absolute horror event, you just can't force this stuff back in. It's out. People know. You need to be indoctrinated with transphobia, homophobia, misogyny to believe that stuff. Because if you just meet LGBT people, if you just talk to women like they're humans, you soon realise that all of this stereotyping,
concept, right?
You soon realise that all this just crap is just rubbish. And if you learn people about their lives, and with the internet and with greater social acceptance and greater visibility and platforms and stuff, it's so hard to indoctrinate people to be homophobic and others anymore, because they'll just meet a gay person and they'll be like, oh, they're just normal like me.
Yeah.
So in that sense, super long term, I'm positive, but in the immediate short term, I'm very negative, because there's a lot more damage these people can do before the pendulum starts swinging back the other way. And when it does, it's going to be amazing. But there's a few more years of it yet.
I just, because I tell myself these are like the crazy death throes of these ideas, that this is like sort of this I hope so too, and this doesn't in any way minimize the need for activism and the type of work that you're doing. I just when I get exhausted, I try to think in these terms of being okay, I think that sort of frantic, spastic response from people who are trying to extinguish the rights of other people, or deny the rights of some people to even exist, that this response that we're seeing is maybe indicative of a positive thing on like a larger scale. I hope. But
yeah. I mean, I rather than just kind of blindly hoping, I mean, you can just look at the polls like you were mentioning earlier. We can just look and see that like 3/4 of people support abortion rights, and it's the same with LGBT rights. Most people do, and that you can still see the acceptance going up even during this kind of like global panic about trans people. The acceptance for trans people is still on the rise, even if it's a bit slower than it was. And that, yeah, these two things adding up. I mean, it just can't. It's not stable, is it, to have such a disparity between the people making the laws and the view of the public?
Yeah. When you talk about how people have to be indoctrinated to sort of have these views,
I mean, you do.
Have you seen the responses? There's a thing that I've seen in the United States where trans people going to like libraries and kids, and have you seen this? That there will be like I saw this in San Diego. I've seen it on Facebook too, where there are people who are like, you can't have trans people going to the library and reading books to children. What are the children gonna think? These are just people. we can't have that. It's one of the stupidest things that I see now fairly regularly is that there's a battle being fought about whether or not it's okay for trans people to read storybooks to children and volunteer their time at libraries. Just you know, as an indicator of how things are going here in the colonies.
Yeah, it is bad for them. I mean, for anyone who doesn't like trans people, thinks they should be wiped out or whatever, then the idea of your kids meeting a trans person who's normal and isn't even like saying trans people deserve rights. They're just simply saying, "Oh, I'm just going to read your book." Like, if you're some kid and someone you've been told to hate reads you a book and it's just normal, and they do it like a few, you know, days of your life even, or once a week or whatever, then it's just going to ruin any attempt to indoctrinate people into fear-mongering and being prejudiced. So yeah, I can see why. It's like that's also why they really don't want LGBT people on TV and you know, in Disney films and all this kind of stuff, because it's so normalizing, and just to normalize LGBT people is the ultimate like spanner in the works of the anti-LGBT hate machines. So it is quite satisfying knowing that they can make all these laws and they can like lie to these children and they can come up with all this disgusting stuff and threaten our lives, and then we can just finally get a film out where a cartoon man kisses another cartoon man and it like does way more damage to any than anything else can happen. It's just like completely ridiculous that that's what they're... I mean, it's not the only thing they're defeated by, but it does make a big difference.
Yeah.
And they know it and we know it, and that's what's so good about it.
When people who
planting
just,
stun
like,
mine
can't deal with other people having rights or existing and are sort of in this narrow mindset, and the reaction of anger and all that cognitive dissonance. The thing that I think about a lot is like when this is weird. I don't know. I'm taking this to a weird place.
Let's do it. Let's get weird.
You know how
We're in the bed, so.
you know how Hitler had this whole idea about there being like this master race, and then they hosted the Olympics, and there were black track athletes who just kicked the shit out of everybody, like Jesse Owens and stuff, while Hitler's like sitting in the stands watching, and then like had to like deal with that, but like keep going with like no, I swear we got this master race thing going on. That's what these people remind me of.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not the best parallel when we're talking about trans people in sports, because, but yeah, anyway.
Shit, I hope I didn't just give those weirdos ammo. I can't with the trans people in sports arguments. God bless you, Katie, for engaging with those people. Okay, we got some callers coming in.
Show yourself.
Yeah. I've set the standard for how weird this next hour is going to be. All right, let's talk. Okay, we're going to do a quick check-in with Ruth in California. Wants to give a message to Christians. Hey, Ruth, what's going on?
I wouldn't just say Christians on the call notes, but
it doesn't. But I want to give Ruth the opportunity to speak her mind here.
What word did you put in front of Christians, Ruth?
Recon plane scanning the area.
Keep the fuck out of the way.
You can't hide forever.
You know why they're doing that?
Ready with a recon
They're afraid. And they are afraid they're losing their evangelical followers. And they're afraid they're all out of control. So they're going to fuck us over.
All objectives secure.
To get back in control. Now in Texas, I watch Fair and Cousin on YouTube. Texas, I think it was one of the judges there allowed a case of child abuse on transgender children to go ahead. So they're going to start prosecuting parents with transgender children in Texas.
Yeah, so the current status of... Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say the current status of that little thing is they are... So the governor or someone has signed into law, or whatever what they do in Texas, to say that all parents of... Governor Abbott has signed into law saying that all parents should be investigated if they have trans children, and then there was an injunction put in place saying this needs to be stopped until it's sorted through the law, and then there's one family who are kind of suing over this, and then there was like a separate ruling which has now said that one family is protected by the injunction, but everyone else isn't. So most families are now in this situation where, I mean, children could be taken off their families and have the healthcare taken away from them. Families could be arrested and even put in jail or face huge fines, and have the children taken off them because they are loving their child and doing what all the international medical organisations say is best for them. Yeah, it's totally disgusting. So I didn't mean to cut you off, I thought I'd just clarify on that.
Almost there. There's no feeling like they're taking
the
Charlie.
Christians are now taking us back to the Dark Ages, and the Republicans.
Ready for you.
I hate to say this, but the Democrats sat on their laurels. They let this happen.
Allied glide bomber on the right.
It certainly proves that the whole political class seems to be failing. I think I can say that on this face.
Frustrating. It's hard for me to watch the news. I go on YouTube and listen to European news, and you guys, Farron cousins, and people who don't lie. And even they say it's going to get worse before it gets better. Florida has passed the book banning now, so they're going to start burning books next. And then they're going to, a senator in Florida is also talking about no public schools. They want to rid public schools now, make them all private. This is, I saw this on the news, so, and heard her say it. And it's frightening.
So there seems to be, I point, with respect to the things that you're addressing here, Ruth, I find myself constantly thinking about sort of incentive problems for our elected officials in the United States. Because we have to remember, the incentive isn't do the right thing. The incentive isn't that they'll be rewarded if they protect vulnerable people. For a lot of our elected officials, the incentive is to try to take advantage of outrage and are more sort of amygdala-driven emotional states. And for a lot of elected officials in the United States, if they can do like what Katie had brought up with respect to, say, oh, well, the family is under attack. Your family and everybody's family, the family is under attack by these people who are different than you are. There's very little in the way of, if I can kind of focus on what we do here at Talk Heathen, there's very little in the way of discussions about what do we believe and why. Okay? Do we have good reasons for thinking that allowing this group of people over here to have equal rights as everybody else and to be treated with dignity and respect as anybody else would want, that would harm anybody? We have good reasons to think that. Those conversations aren't what's happening. It's just, they're different, fuck them, right? Yeah. And where do we go? But in the United States, for as long as they're different, fuck them, gets people to go and vote for you, unfortunately.
Then it's definitely not the USA.
Well, I think right now the anger is so new and raw, but as we watch what's going on in the world, nobody talks about it in between, like you're saying, Kenneth. There's no discussion on why do you think that these people are dangerous. I have gay friends. I have LGBT friends. I go to a gym that has a transgender woman in there. Nobody says, God, get him out. Just accept it.
But there are people who would. There are people who would be like, that trans lady's lifting more than that lady over there, so... Probably not. Probably not. But people will pretend.
In comparison with your
Yeah, right.
I'm just sad, Kenneth, and I'm just so sad about what's going on. And I just wanted to call because normally I'm jolly and happy.
Show yourself.
Still in a cast, but I'm not on pain pills anymore.
Incoming
no
grenade.
Percocet. Last time I called, I was on Percocet. So I addicted to opioids again.
No, I hear you on the sad thing. I was telling Katie before the show that on TikTok earlier this week, I saw a guy who was a military veteran like myself who lives in Alabama, and that he has daughters, and he's like, I honestly, it's so much worse. I wonder about just going to Canada and presenting myself for like political asylum because my daughter's rights are being taken away sort of as we speak, and I don't know what to do about it. And this gentleman, you could just see how sad he was to be saying this. But
oh yeah,
like
I mean,
but I get it.
There's a lot of fathers. Yeah, there's a lot of fathers out there who are scared to death. You know, it's not just women. There are fathers. If their daughter gets raped, they have no rights. He cannot help her out. He would have to go to, like, here in California, where the governor just is going to sign a bill. They got recon in the sky. No matter who comes in, they can't take it away. He'll have to travel. What if he can't? What if that man cannot
securing Baker.
Travel? He has to watch his daughter suffer. Why is that Christian? Why is that what people always say, what would Jesus do? In the Bible, they had abortion. Why aren't they bringing that up?
Yeah, it's just disconnected. Like, this is one of those situations where they'll use religion as an excuse, but religion isn't the reason. And the reason they use it as an excuse is because it can automatically summon a big base of people who will believe something without having a reason to do it. And so, like, the reason, there's a lot of complex reasons why they're attacking abortion, but the main one is misogyny and hatred of women and wanting to control them. And if they can, you know, the Bible does have things about controlling women. It is quite misogynistic, but it doesn't say anything specifically about abortion. It doesn't matter, because if they can just say, this is what God has said, and then therefore you should vote for our person who's in power, who gives our church the most amount of money, you know, it all feeds into each other. And if you build up this kind of group of people, if your congregational just does what you say because you're saying it's the word of God, don't question it. I mean, that's like part of the teachings, isn't it? Don't ask questions about God. He works in mysterious ways. So you might even have a moral objection to it. But if you believe this is what God wants, then who are you to have a moral objection? So yeah, it's scary watching people weaponize religion. Like, I mean, the prime example. I'm not sure I can say this on the show. Just have maybe I'll say more general. When you get politicians voted into power who very clearly aren't Christian in the slightest. Not just like they're bad Christians, whatever that means, but like they obviously just do not know anything about Christianity. They don't care about it at all. You know, they clash with like all of the main tenets. Then they get the big evangelical backing. It's clear they're not just voting Christians into power. They're voting the people who will be politically useful for them to do their bidding. And when you want someone in power who's going to oppose abortion because you hate women, then you link it up with religion, and you just got to find some guy sleazy enough to sign the bill.
He said he was going to do it, and he did it.
Yeah, and he's not the only one. There's all these governors signing these anti-trans bills. They're all the same. You know, they're all the same kind of person.
All the same. Old white men who hate women.
There is an interesting point
they'll get an abortion. Yeah, absolutely. No problem. Yeah.
There's an interesting point that you raised a few moments ago with respect to, you know, well, why aren't these people motivated by the parts of the Bible that talk about loving your neighbor, and why aren't they, you know, this is an interesting conundrum that we have, where, you know, and it's been said many times before that the Bible is sort of this like Rorschach test where people bring their own moral intuitions to the text and then find justifications for what they already believe. That is, in my experience, how like almost everybody approaches not just the Bible but other religious texts too. And so the same book, slavery in the United States is a great example of this, where, you know, and civil rights more broadly too, where you had people using the same book to argue both sides of the issue. no, the Bible says we should, love our neighbors, and that isn't consistent with slavery. Yeah, but the Bible tells us exactly how to own our slaves and how to beat them and all of this other. So this happens with virtually every issue in the United States, that you've got these faith-based beliefs being used to justify whatever people want to do, right? So, and this is the problem with faith-based beliefs.
Yeah, that's like this whole point of the show, isn't it? To address the fact, like, in the end, what you believe is kind of less interesting than why you believe it. Because if you've got like some if you built some worldview based on some facts and some logical reasoning, we could disagree on things, and then we can have an argument to find out which premise we disagree on or which logic we make. And then, ideally, one of us should change our mind. But if you just get to a point where you're like, oh, well, I just believe that just because, I just have blind faith, then we can't do that, and there's no way you can change your mind. And then if you meet someone else who's got a blind faith belief, then the best you can do is stop arguing with each other. Often it goes to more extreme than that, and one of you starts trying to control the other over nothing. So, yeah, it's more important to learn how to think, not how to think, but how to build up beliefs and make up a world that you're right now.
And that's the thing that really scares me and makes me sad with respect to the future of the United States as we're sitting right now, is that not only do we have all of these problems that we're facing problems is fine, everybody faces problems, but we're facing solvable problems, but we are not bringing the tools to the table that can be used to solve those problems. If we're not going to apply critical thinking, if we're not going to bring humanistic, empathetic, passionate, rational conversations to the table, then we're stuck. And I don't know how we get past that. So on that depressing as shit note, Ruth, I'm going to cut you loose.
Just before you go, Ruth, can I just say about your first point you were saying about you're worried of how this is going to go, and just before we picked up your call, me and Kenneth were talking about sort of the backlash to the backlash to the backlash. This constant pushback where most people hold one view and the people in power do nothing. There's this amazing quote by Princess Leia in Star Wars 4, where she says, the more you tighten your grip, the more star systems will slip through your fingers. And I think about that all the time. Like, I have my whole life since I first saw it, because it's so true. That when you get these horrible, authoritarians in power, they do have faith, and they do have power. The more things they do, like, them going for abortion was such a big mistake strategically in the long term, because there are, like, hundreds of millions of women who are affected by this.
It's like half of everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And when they were just using trans people to jump on and get some outrage votes, yeah, that lots of people do care, but maybe they don't care enough to learn about it. But everyone knows someone affected by an abortion ban.
Yep.
So it's just more star systems are going to slip through their fingers.
Hopefully. All right.
Yeah, anyway.
Let's hope so. And I really appreciate Kenneth. I love you guys. And I come from a perspective of never reading the Bible. I've never read it. I don't even know. The only way I know it is listening to you guys and listening to people that call in and you know it really well, and that educates me. See, I'm getting educated about this stuff by you guys, and that's so important. That's why I watch. Not to bitch and complain all the time about Christians. It's educating me because I've never been one. So, it's enlightening. I think for a lot of people.
We appreciate that, because that's all we're trying to do is make people think. That's it. So, Ruth, have a fantastic rest of your weekend. I hope that foot starts feeling better soon.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. I got 3 weeks left in my cast, and then I'll be ready. Oh, and Wednesday I get all my needs. A lot of things. But losing implant because opioids destroyed my teeth.
Okay, that's going to have to be a story for another day.
Yeah, go back in and have a discussion about that. But
all right, take care.
Good luck with it, Ruth.
You guys, take care.
All right. Well, hey. Ruth's great. I love that when Ruth pops in, that a lot of people in the chat are welcoming and kind. Welcoming and kind is what we want to be, not just with people we like, but also the people we disagree with. Let's spread some love around. So speaking of spreading love around,
where's this going?
Here's some stuff that you may have missed on ACA shows in the last week.
I speak for no one but myself. That comes from owning the messages that I've ingested from society about men's discomfort with women, with their demand that women be a certain way in order to be consumable, but I'm not a goddamn edible.
That's kind of like the world of evangelicalism. It's, you know, you're dating, and then right away they're like, when are you getting married? And then as soon as you're married, when are you having kids? And you're like, I'm 19.
Slow down. This isn't a Monty Python sketch.
Like, I'm not all about like limiting free speech, but I'm definitely all about not promoting violence and calling for the harm or death of others, and that is absolutely what this is. You're firing up a congregation of people with hate speech.
I find it difficult to believe that anybody thinks that we don't actually exist. You know, and it's an unfalsifiable claim, which is it's fantastic for mental masturbation, especially if you've had a couple of joints.
Did it come out of nowhere? It was put there by humans. Humans drew lines on a map. Israelite people believe something. They're a nation on the planet. Yeah. Does that make it true?
We had a good week. We had a good week at the ACA. There are some faces that popped up in that video that I just love. You know what's funny? I got a Forrest Valkyrie t-shirt. I just love the work that Forrest does. But I realized right before the show it's the same color as my green screen, and I was just like a disembodied head. I tried to wear it. Maybe for the Halloween episode.
Yeah, we could have a disembodied head episode. Why not?
Disembodied.
Different talking about faces on the background. You wouldn't know whose head was talking at any one time.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's take a trip over to your neck of the woods, Katie. We've got a caller, Danny, who I think is calling in to maybe just talk a little bit of shit about it. And that's okay. That's okay.
Let's go.
All right, Danny, how are you?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, good to meet Katie and Kenneth today.
Hello. What can we help you with this week?
Enemy recon on flyby.
I'm just thinking about. I know you're from the UK since I am, and I'm a trans person. Even though my voice doesn't really portray that, but do you feel that it's easier to be a trans person in the UK rather than the USA?
That is a difficult question, I guess because I've never actually been to the USA, so it's hard to say other than from talking. You know, I talk to trans people from all around the world all the time. Some of my best friends are American trans people, so you know, I do get a good understanding of what it's like on the ground. I think one thing to bear in mind whenever you're hearing about the horrible attacks on the LGBT community from like law and the media at the moment, which is relentless and is constantly happening all the time. As we've kind of been talking about, as the theme of this show almost so far, is that most people like that. Most people don't support these things, taking away LGBT people's rights. Most people aren't bigoted, and you can sense that when you're out and about, just on the street, in the pub, you know, at work. People generally treat you well, and that's definitely true of my experience in the UK, of almost everywhere I've been. And from talking to American trans people, it seems that's the case in lots of places. And I think that it does vary. You know, I live in a city, and generally cities are more accepting for LGBT people, and that's probably true the world over. But yeah, one thing that's interesting to always think about, like from a British perspective, when talking about the USA, is, I mean, the US is not really like a country. It's like 50 countries. Because it's just so big. It's like comparing it to the whole of Europe. And you know, you could say, oh, which is better to live in Europe or the USA? That would depend. Something like Hungary is one of the worst places to live for trans people, almost in the world. It's definitely in the bottom half. The worst place in Europe, absolutely terrible, and it's probably worse than anywhere in the USA. But then somewhere like France or Iceland, very good for trans people, and it's the same in the USA. You know, there are many states where they have much better laws than the UK, and they probably have a higher percentage support and have less media aggression against trans people. And then there are some states which that's not the case at all. And it's been interesting looking at the laws of the different states in the USA to see how different they are. You know, in some places, if you want to update your birth certificate, passport, driving license, all that kind of stuff, you can just do it. Like, almost in an afternoon, you can just fill out a form and it's just done. But then, in other places, like Tennessee, for example, you just cannot change it at all. So, I don't know, I kind of imagine the UK as like, maybe in the middle, would have been in the upper quarter, I guess, at one point, then it's probably moved down to about halfway on the scale of where to live compared to the US states, if that makes sense. So if we were like the 51st state, which depressingly kind of are in some ways, we'd try to be in the middle. But yeah, that's kind of my ignorant, never been to America view. I don't know how if you could comment on this, Kenneth, as someone who is a trans person. But you have lived on both sides of the Atlantic.
I've lived all over the United States, and I live smack dab in the middle of it now. So yeah, I would say that even within certain states, I mean, like I lived for some years in Illinois, and the experience of a trans person living in Chicago is going to be very different from if they were to hop in their car and drive south for a couple hours. It's not as simple as urban versus rural by any means, but it definitely, you can sort of look at political heat maps of the United States and see where a person, where a trans person is going to be more or less welcome, where and especially sort of legislatively, where you've got, it runs the gamut from some places trying really hard to do the right thing, and other places that are openly hostile towards trans. So, there's, I feel super bad for, like, but I mean, let's make up like a hypothetical state, like, like Georgia or like Alabama, some random, if you're like a trans teenager living, in certain parts of the country, it's really, really difficult for you. And I think that's one of the reasons why people who do work overseas, where there's an international reach of just sort of normalizing who you are and pushing back against bigotry. It's great because for myriad reasons, but I think about some helpless teenager in some place where everywhere they look, people are going to be openly hostile toward them, and then they can look at someone like Katie and go, okay,
they're taking Charlie.
It's okay for me to be who I am. I think that's powerful. So.
Enemy's got a war machine coming in. Enemy recon, spy in the skies.
Well, it's true.
It does make a big difference having the internet and having media and seeing trans people just existing. Certainly for me, I don't know if you felt that too, Danny.
Well, before all this, I had no idea, and then the internet came along, and late 90s, I got a PC, got the internet. And that's when I found out about trans people and realised what I am. So, that was a good thing.
I mean, I didn't know about it. I experienced being trans as a kid. But I didn't know what it was because it was illegal to teach about being trans people in the UK when I was growing up. And so I didn't really realise that trans people were just normal and that was what I was. Until I discovered trans people on YouTube, and that's depressing. But it's
Sorry?
That's where I was. I feel I'm a little bit older than you, I think. But, thank you for your comment, Kenneth. One of my favourite hosts on here and stuff. And, nice to hear what Katie has to say. And I didn't really have much to say, but I wanted to call in, so there we are.
Yeah, I would just say if you're planning an American vacation, maybe just don't go to the southern, stick to the coasts. Maybe, I don't know.
This is a problem with the ACA because half of my American friends are in Texas, and they're like, "Oh, you should just come to Texas right now. It's amazing." And then I talk to my trans friends, and they're like, "Texas is like the worst place." And then
Texas is like 5 different states in one. It's its own thing. Yeah, but. Well, Danny, thank you very much for calling in. And you're welcome anytime. We got theists calling in though, and they get priorities. So cut you loose, Danny. Have a great rest of your weekend. All right, let's see. Hey, real quick. Not too quick though, because they deserve some time. I want to talk about our top 5 patrons. Thank you to actually, Katie. Would you do the honors of reading our top 5 patrons?
Yes, if you're afraid of the might of these patrons and having them on your tongue.
I just feel like it's more
the power.
I think that your accent, it just makes them sound more sophisticated, and it's like a.
Do you want me to do top to bottom or bottom to top?
I think top to bottom. Yeah.
Okay. So, the first name that Kenneth is too afraid to say is Eric Tweet, a powerful name that no mortal can say. Number 2 is Dinglebury Jackson. And then Balaam's Donkey, Ayemi, sorry if I said that one wrong, Dan Conga, and then we have an honourable mention for Charles Jones, the final name that the demon that is Kenneth cannot speak.
That's right. Thank you, patrons, for your support. We love you. We appreciate you. If you would like to support us on Patreon, you can find us at tiny.cc/Patreon.
You want a British person reading out your name, then that's where you need to go in order to.
If you too would like to hear, you know what the one is, and I've said this before, but I just love hearing the Brits say Dinglebury. That's what it is. Yeah, real quick before I get to the next caller, please take a moment to like this video if you like what we're doing, and subscribe to the channel. You can also become a channel member by clicking the join button below the video. Doing that gets you custom chat emotes. You'll help perpetuate the mission of Talk Heathen and the ACA. Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
That is to destroy God.
Well.
They're taking bacon.
Yeah. All right, so here we go. We got our first theist caller. We're gonna go talk to Zeno. Zeno says there is scientific evidence for God. Zeno, how are you today?
I am good. How about you?
Not bad. Not bad. So, real
ready
quick,
for this evidence?
Yeah, real quick. I just want to ask.
Sure.
What is evidence?
All right, we had this conversation before, so I said last time we all need to define evidence. So you have to give me your definition. I have to give you I have to give you mine, and Katie has to give hers.
All right. Well, I'll plant the flag, because a lot of times when I hear people talking about evidence, they're talking about reasons they believe something. I think that evidence is anything that can be used to demonstrate that a claim is true. So, for example, if I said that I believe that my peanut butter and jelly sandwich is talking to me, and I believe that because the leprechaun told me, I have not yet provided evidence. I've complicated things. So, when people tell me they have evidence, what I'm hoping that they're going to bring to the table is anything that can be used to demonstrate that their claim is true. If that works for everybody, maybe we can dive into the substance of this.
I guess what I would add is that evidence is often, you talk about pieces of evidence, and you're often trying to build up enough evidence for a claim that there's no other sort of explanation that evidence points to. Because we often get into this argument about whether 100 people claiming something is itself evidence, and you could say in some way it is, and in some ways it isn't. But it's not enough to convince people most of the time, because you need different forms of evidence to build up this kind of picture. So I mean, if you had a piece of evidence and you're like, oh, we've done this scientific test, and it turns out potentially this could, point to God, but it could also point to aliens, and it could also point to a giant space wizard, then like that might be a piece of evidence, but it's not going to be evidence that's going to convince me, I guess.
Okay,
so that's
all right.
what I would add.
So I would say I have a bit of mathematical evidence that's substantial to me, and that evidence would be, first of all...
Wait. What happened to your definition of evidence?
Okay. That is my definition. I agree with what you both said. So I'm saying that I'm providing evidence, but it's mathematical evidence. Mathematical evidence works for me. Does that work for you?
Is mathematical evidence the same as scientific evidence?
It could be scientific. I think a bit of math could help. Using...
Well, okay. When you say
math is like a tool for science, isn't it?
Yeah, because math deals with, axioms and how numbers perform, right? But science deals with what we can observe and test and reproduce, and science is a way of trying to learn things about reality, right?
So creating a model of the world.
We use math in science, right?
Yeah, for sure. Math is a tool.
We use math in science.
Yeah.
Math is used in science.
Right, but when you say you have scientific evidence for God, I just, because I'm
it sounds like experimental data. That's what it sounds like.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Can we get to it?
Yeah, go for it. I'm excited.
If you guys are okay. So, I would start off with a single question, which points to the evidence. At least it's substantial for me. Which would be, I just want a simple answer. Do you know everything about the universe? Yes or no?
I don't.
I don't either. Before you keep going, would you just let me know what you mean by no? Like, can you just let me know what knowledge is?
Yes. What you understand in the natural world, you yourself.
Some things that I understand are wrong.
Okay, because when I think about knowledge, Dan might die recently too. It's not a perfect definition, but I like to go with justified true belief. When I say I know something, justified true belief. So when I hear you say, do I know everything about the universe, I'm going immediately, no. I do not have justified true belief.
I don't either.
Okay.
No one does.
Can we put a number on that, like a metric? Like, how much do you think you know versus
I don't think we can know how much there is to know.
That is exactly right.
I don't think we can even know what order of magnitude, or even order of magnitude, magnitude of things.
Yeah. Would you say it's a small number?
What you mean? What my percentage of knowledge of facts about the universe?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't even think that really makes sense as a claim, because like, what is a knowledge? Like, are the units here? I mean, in a way, there's an infinite number of things to know, because every time another nanosecond passes, all the particles in the entire universe have changed state, moved around, and then there's suddenly 10 to the 80 new pieces of information, or you could just call that one piece of information. It depends. Where's the granularity on what a thing to know is.
For the sake of letting you go down the train that you're like the track that you're trying to take us down, I'll say I know very, very little, and we've been from the weighed against the universe.
I'll say 69%.
That's a good number.
Using a sticky bomb.
Jeez. Okay. So we have a small number and a big number. So let's start with the small number. So what I would do mathematically is just a little trick that I'm trying to apply here. Is that you would take everything, which is 100%, and subtract it. So if you know 1%, then you would subtract 1% from 100%, and then you're left with 99.999 gray area. If you say
not even gray, it's not even gray. It's a black area. Let's say I know like virtually nothing. Where's your evidence?
Okay. Well, I think we could use a reductio ad absurdum argument here and prove that there's evidence within all the space that this is the stuff you don't know. So we could use the reductio ad absurdum to say, well, you don't know what all this stuff is. So how are we able to...
You don't have evidence, but you're saying that somewhere in all the stuff we don't know, maybe there's evidence.
Well, there's a certain... Would you agree there are certain types of evidence? Right? Like,
wait a minute,
you said you had scientific evidence for God,
and now you're that there might be evidence out there. Like, I'll agree. If someone wants to, if you're making the claim that there might be evidence for God out there, okay, I accept.
There is evidence. Yeah.
Well, you're making the claim there is it. You need to give us this evidence.
I would say. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that there's so many different kinds. I'm going to raise one called transrational evidence. So transrational evidence would be somewhat of a new term that I'm creating, but I feel it's necessary to create this new form of evidence so we can understand that there are things we don't know before we get there, but we do have evidence for it if we could put the pieces together. So
let me ask you something. Okay, so I think of an unsolved crime, and if I were to go to the police and say, hey, you know this unsolved murder that you have? I have evidence that Zeno did it. And they were like, you do? And I said, yes, I have scientific evidence that Zeno did it. And the detective goes, okay, let me have the evidence. And I said, well, you know all that shit that you don't know about the universe? It's out there.
Okay, greatly put. I like, well said. So, when we're talking about a god, this isn't going to be a little bit different than the courtroom method. Because now we're talking about, I'm not going to say something supernatural, but we're talking about something a bit more complicated than like a murder case. Right, because we know people get away with shit all the time.
Why is it more complicated
all the time?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't see why it's different. I mean, you're just trying to prove beyond reasonable doubt. I mean, maybe you're trying to prove even, or however you want to like explain your evidence. But like, why is it more complicated? We shouldn't be putting anyone in jail until we have enough evidence that they definitely did it.
And I'm just talking about, like, when is it time to believe something? We always return to this question of when is it time to believe something, and it's when there's evidence, is typically something people can agree on, if they're really committed to faith. So, yeah, this whole thing started with you said you have scientific evidence for God, and now you're talking about the evidence exists somewhere out in the ether, in the unknown, and I'm wondering if you'd be willing at this point to admit that you don't have scientific evidence, or present the scientific evidence if you're still keeping it in your pocket somewhere.
So the scientific evidence is using a form of math to apply to the science. We do apply math to science, and we're working backwards, so we have to reverse engineer. Scientifically, we know that we live in this demonstrably large world. We know it's large, we know it's expanding. We can prove it's expanding. So we know for a fact that we're in a pale blue dot, which is so small, so tiny in comparison to the world. This is all science. So we're working backwards. We understand there's a lot of stuff out there scientifically. So the evidence technically is right in front of you. Technically, but you have to be able to put the pieces together scientifically.
So I'm just gonna follow what you're putting. So we're small. There's a lot of stuff we don't know, and that is not evidence for anything.
Yeah. All we have is the knowledge that we do know.
What am I not putting together? Help me out. There's stuff that we don't know.
Okay. What? All right. So we're not able to put together. Why? I gotta wrap up soon, and I know you guys gotta move on. But we're not putting together all the tiny pieces of what makes up the universe and why it has functionality.
But what if any of that has to do with the God?
I mean, also we are. Like, I mean, every piece of knowledge we have, we can put together, and it's kind of like our body of scientific knowledge for the whole of humanity, isn't it? I mean, what pieces do we need to put together that we have that will lead to any kind of evidence for God? I can't see it. Can you? Maybe a better way to ask this is: can you explain why your argument is different to we know 1% of the things in the universe, therefore God? Like, I don't see how it's different to. It sounds like you're saying there is a lot out there to know, so there's probably evidence for God out there. I don't see the difference between that and your argument.
Oh, well, I guess I should have defined God like any,
Well, any God will do.
God to me is, well, no, I don't believe in the magic guy with the beard, but I'm just talking about the first domino to start all of this. I would call that God, if that could simplify.
I mean, yeah, you could make if you want to make a definition for God as like the thing that caused the universe. I mean, or even if you just wanted to say, God is the thing that caused the universe, then we can say, well, there was some kind of cause for the universe, whether the universe is just like looping around, or whether it was created or something, or whether it just appeared naturally. But if you just call that God, then you might be calling just like a process of physics God, or you might be calling like an infinite loop that's always existed God. And then that, I mean, that's kind of like saying,
yeah,
but that's, I mean, I feel like that's a very uninteresting definition for God, because it's like saying,
it's just a cause. I'm not saying that it's omnipotent. I'm saying it's just the first cause.
Well, if you want to say,
giving it properties like,
but we don't even know. I mean, for all we know,
we don't know if it was a first cause.
For all we know, the universe is, past eternal. And there's lots of models out there about our universe that don't involve a first cause in this way that you're trying to make a case for it, which is going great, by the way. The thing that I am wondering is just where is the evidence, though? There hasn't been any evidence. It's just argument from ignorance, argument from incredulity, and that's it.
So the evidence. First, do you know what transrationalism is?
No, I'm just regularly rational, I guess. I have not.
I'm just trans.
Yeah, Katie is both trans and rational. I'm just rational. I'm cis rational.
So transrational typically goes beyond what science could tell us right now. That's the transrationalism of
when we get, hang on a second. When we say go beyond what science can tell us, I mean what science is here is the method we know how to or the best way we have to find out what is true, and we do that through experimentation and observation and testing things, making predictions and seeing if the predictions come true. That's what science is. So if we wanted to prove, whether something exists, one way we could do it is go up and like touch it, take a photo of it, get someone else to go up and touch it, see if it's it's still there the next day. We can do all these experiments to see if something exists, and that's kind of using science to find out whether it exists. But if you're saying there's another way to find out whether something is true or not, then you kind of need to demonstrate that it can even find out things that are true. Like, I mean, a good example of this would be comparing like medicine to prayer when healing something. We can use science to test whether the medicine works, and we can use science to test whether the prayer works by looking to see if we have 1 million people and we have a control group and we give medicine to some, we give prayer to some of them, we can look at the rates in which they heal. But then we're just doing science, we're just looking at the evidence. I mean, that's what doing science is. So you're saying there's another way to know whether something's true. Like, what is that way, and how do we show without using science that it works?
It's a way of knowing things about the unknown.
How can we predict something without testing to see whether the prediction is true?
So you're going to have to use transrationalism. So you have to be able... here's a good thought experiment. So 1,000 years ago, could you prove the events that are happening today 1,000 years ago without the evidence to show? You probably could not provide any evidence whatsoever, but we know it exists today. So a good transrational argument would be to understand that another 1,000 years will pass and we will have more technology. Even though we can't give you tangible evidence of it, but we should understand through transrationalism.
I hate when people say tangible evidence. Like there's something, like there's intangible evidence. You can't give evidence. Let's just be honest. Let's cut through all the bullshit, because what you're talking about is making assumptions about what is not known, which is not transrationalism. That's just not being rational. So you can't be not rational and then use a word with rational in it and pretend it's rational. That I can't let that happen.
Okay, wait.
So Like if someone was saying, if someone was making claims about what's gonna happen 1,000 years from now, and say, oh, I know these things are gonna happen because there's a lot of shit that we don't know about the universe right now, I would not have any reason to think that what they were saying is accurate.
Okay, so Kenneth, have you ever invested in anything or created anything? I could circle this back around really quick before I leave. So,
are you sure you want to do that and not just give the evidence for your stuff? Because you said you had scientific evidence for God.
I'm giving evidence. I think the evidence that I'm giving is transrationalism evidence, and I'm trying to walk you guys through what that looks like. Like it's
not evidence.
But it's not.
It's not evidence.
It's a form of evidence.
If you cannot, no, it's not. If you can't use any of this bullshit to demonstrate that anything you're saying is true, it's not evidence. It's just bullshit.
Well, no, the evidence. So, all right.
Okay, I've got another angle. Hang on. How about we're using your transrational thing? How is it the case that we can't use your transrational? Like we're using transrational to say there's evidence for God. Can I not just use transrational to say there's evidence of a giant space frog wizard? What in transrational says that's not possible?
No, you're giving the properties. You're giving me properties of something I can't see. I'm not giving you the properties of a god. So I'm not telling you what it looks like.
You gave me one property and you said that it was the first mover.
Yeah. No. One property would be it is the beginning of your universe. I'm not telling you what color it is or what it looks like.
I'm saying that there's something that was the beginning of your god, and it's the frog wizard of the stars. I don't know, we're like...
And you're making assumptions about the properties of our universe.
Touche. Say that again, Kenneth?
You're making assumptions about the properties of our universe. Properties that could be explained by a space frog wizard.
So wait. So this is why I spoke of earlier, how much do you think you know about the world? And the reason I brought that up is because all the area that you don't understand is what we need to learn about.
But unfortunately, I know just enough about the world to know that nothing that you're saying makes sense. Because, and that's the thing. That's the thing about how we think is more important than like the sum total of what we know. If you have like some basic critical thinking skills, then you don't have to know a whole bunch of shit to know that making stuff up about the unknown isn't a good way to arrive at true conclusions.
And that's demonstrated.
Very well said, but a long time ago we used to believe things that are clearly false now, so we have to go into the same ideology that maybe 1,000 years later we're going to be like, oh, we had all this shit wrong. And
I agree with you already.
Progress.
I've already agreed with you that there might be evidence for God, like that we just haven't discovered, possibly. But we don't have it, so we can't strongly say whether there is or there isn't out there. All we can say is that we don't have it yet. I mean, the way, kind of what I'm thinking of, I don't know if this really makes sense, but like if we arrive at like a big meadow, like huge meadow that goes off to the horizon, and someone's like, oh, I wonder if there's like a 7-leaf clover here. And I can look down at my feet and be like, well, I can see like 100 clover plants and they're all 3 leaves. And then it feels like you're turning up and saying, well, there's...
Teammate called a bombing run, heads up. Teammates got local intel on their side. Losing objective able. All objectives are secure. Dig in. Recon aloft. We got eyes. They're taking Charlie. Recon, sweep of the sector. advantage.
Sure better always.
Watch the sticky bomb. Recon plane circling the battlefield. Overrun.
I'm cornered.
We got recon aloft. They got recon in the sky. Friendly glide bomber incoming.
Forever.
hardcore domination. Move out and secure the objective. Training's over. This shit is for real. Closing with Able. We have the lead. Keep it up. Taking Baker. We hold Baker.
Sticky bomb out! They tossed the sticky bomb!
They're taking Baker.
Incoming sticky bomb!
Losing objective Able. Hostile recon in the air. Spy in the sky. Losing objective Able. Able is overrun.